in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen, with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen, with ideas we're happy to share.
Welcome everybody. My name is Dilip Barman. I'm a cook in the kitchen. There's about 30 of us cooks in the kitchen. We're all Food for Life instructors. Food for Life is a nutrition education program of the Physicians Committee. We know something about food and we know something about nutrition. And we have these kitchen-to-kitchen shows every month focusing on limited fat, whole food, plant-based, vegan cooking. Today, it's August here in North Carolina. August is hot. And so our show today is so much cool cooking, keeping it cool in the kitchen. But Dilip, you're not in the kitchen. I know, I'm sitting outside. And Dilip, you're not in your kitchen. That's true too. I've been doing these shows for over a year now, and many of you who are regulars will recognize my home, which this is not. I'm really excited because I'm working with a new venue. It's a wonderful Turkish cultural center in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And I'm going to be doing a number of my classes from here. And I thought it would be fun to try a show from here. So that's where I am. I'm not home. So they have a very nice outdoor area. And this is one trick for keeping it cool in the kitchen, is to kind of cook outside. And I'm going to be demonstrating pressure cooking. Now, some of you are familiar with pressure cooking. And you might say, I'm not so sure I want to pressure cook because I've heard of accidents. When you pressure cook, things explode. And that's true. In the old days, that might happen. But in the new days, we have new electronic pressure cookers. So I'm going to talk about pressure cooking and releasing the steam outside. But before I do that, I wanted to just take a quick look at my notes and give you a little excitement about what's coming. Today, we have a number of cooks in the kitchen making dishes like refrigerated pickled garden vegetables, ceviche, which is normally not vegan. Everything we do is vegan, whole food, plant-based. Summer rolls, which sounds quite good for August. Snickerdoodle hummus with fruit. How yummy does that sound? Overnight oats, raw peach cobbler, and sorbet. And right after my segment, my friend Janin in Abu Dhabi, we're all over the world. Abu Dhabi is going to be making her raw veggie chili. So we have a great show in store for you. Let's get back to pressure cooking. I have a lot to say about pressure cooking, but I want to get the cooking going so that we can try it before my segment's up. So I'm going to show you in the kitchen what I did, but for now, let me show you what I have. So I have some ingredients. I have some tofu, I have various vegetables, and we'll talk about all these ingredients soon. And I cut these up. I could have used frozen too. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply close my pressure cooker. It's going to cook for 0 minutes. And I'll tell you what that means. Let's do a 0-minute cook time, or maybe let's do a 1-minute cook time. And I'll press start. And that's all it takes to cook with pressure. Let's go back in the kitchen and I'll tell you more about pressure cooking and I'll show you how to prep the ingredients. It's nice and cool inside. I'm going to turn on my gas range. There it is. And I'm going to put this bell pepper right on the flame, being careful not to touch the flame. Roasting bell pepper is easy and it caramelizes the sugars and adds extra flavor. One nice thing about keeping it cool in the kitchen, this is generating some heat, but not much. And the cooking is going outside. The pressure cooker isn't generating heat outside, it's all contained, but I am going to release the steam, and I'd rather release it outside to the outdoor environment, not inside, so I'm not warming my kitchen. So pressure cooking is a great way to cook. So while the pepper's going, I'm going to start with some tofu. So there goes the pepper. So I have some refrigerated extra firm tofu, and I've already rinsed the top. I like to rinse my tofu before I start, because who knows where it's been sitting. I'm going to go over the sink, and I'm going to slit it and remove the moisture and bring it right back. So let me do that. So get rid of the water. Now, a lot of you guys, some of you may have heard that with tofu, it's very useful to press the tofu and get rid of all the moisture. Okay? But I am not going to do that because pressure cooking relies on moisture. It's a moist cooking technique. And so this is going to get wet anyhow. So I'm going to take my block of tofu and I'm going to cut it into about 3/4 inch cubes. You can cut into slightly smaller cubes if you want. The trick about slicing is think about mouthfeel. And I like this dish with a significant mouthfeel. And what I'm going to do is, as I cut the tofu, I'm just going to toss it in my Instant Pot. I'm using an Instant Pot for my pressure cooker container. Okay, so I brought a second one. I'm really excited about today's show, keeping it cool. A lot of people say we'd love to cook, but in the summer months, I don't want the kitchen to get hot. And you can skip the bell pepper if you don't want to use your range. And this dish is so easy and fun. I'm going to add some carrots. Now, carrots are a great ingredient. Carrots are very chewy, but the most flavorful carrots I've ever had are pressure-cooked carrots. Pressure-cooked carrots, something about the pressure, I think it's pushing the flavor molecules in, and the carrot tastes really good. So I'm going to take the very top off and put it in my compost. I have this beautiful bowl for compost. And I'm going to cut the carrot a little bit thicker than I normally would, maybe half inches, maybe a half inch. Okay? And remember we said we're going to pressure cook for 0 minutes? 0 minutes means the pressure cooker is going to come up to pressure and then turn off. And that's all you need. And I forgot, I was going to cut this at a diagonal. That's kind of fun. So I'll cut the rest of this at a diagonal. So when you cut your fruits and vegetables, consider other cuts like this. So that's kind of neat. So my first few were kind of straight cuts. Generally, I like to be consistent, and I wasn't consistent this time. I'm going to put some ginger in. Ginger is it's great for blood pressure. It's great for many things. Neil Barnard, who started Physicians Committee, one of his first books, Foods That Fight Pain, I read that 15, 20 years ago. And one of my takeaway messages, because he hammered home how important ginger is I've got to eat more ginger. So here's my ginger. I can use a grater, but I'm just going to be lazy and use my knife. And I'm going to cut the ginger as finely as I'd like. I'm going to go for about between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 inch of the ginger. And the cool thing is my dish is cooking outside. So there goes the ginger. We're going to add, I like crunchy vegetables, so I have some baby bok choy here. And that's a good choice. I'm going to cut the very bottom off. It's a little bit soiled. I'm going to also turn my pepper. And look at the pepper, it's getting nice and charred. And I'm going to cut the bok choy into comfortable bite-sized pieces. I'm going to go with maybe 5/8 of an inch. My daughter, who's here and she's going to be sampling the food, was joking with me. She said, "Daddy, nobody says 5/8 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch." Well, I teach math also. And I do think that there's a big difference between a 3/8 inch cut, a 1/2 inch cut, and a 5/8 inch of a cut. But make the cooking your own. If you say, I'd rather just do 1/2 inch, that's cool. Okay, so there goes the bok choy. Okay, so think about when you eat this, what's a comfortable mouthfeel? I find small cuts, you get more surface area and more flavor, but big cuts, it's more satisfying somehow. Envelopes the tongue, so that's what we have so far. I have some fresh herbs, I have some oregano, so I'm going to use my fingers to strip the oregano, and what stays behind I'll just pluck. So there's my oregano, fresh oregano, and the quantities and everything is in the recipe document, but to tell you the truth, you can just wing it, which is what I usually do. So there's my fresh oregano from my garden. Just before we came to the Sanker Center here in Chapel Hill, I had my daughter get some oregano from our garden. And I'm going to just quickly chop the oregano a little bit. And I'm going to toss the oregano, it's about a teaspoon to a tablespoon worth, into my pot. I have some kale here. There are stores, there's one store called Whole Foods Market that rates foods on what they call an aggregate nutrient density index, an ANDI score, and they give kale 1,000. So when I cook with kale in a salad, what I do is I roughly hand tear the leaves, and for this dish I recommend about 1 inch. So you can do that, you can hand tear the leaves, but this is going to be cooked, and so you can leave some of the stems on if you want, but I'm going to go ahead and remove the stems. So I'm going to just hand tear. The beauty of cooking with kale when you cook it is it cooks down. And And you might put a lot of kale in, but when it cooks down, it doesn't look to be as much. So there's my kale. Let me call the pepper success. It's nice and black. So I'm going to call that success and put it in the plate. Let's talk about broccoli. Brussels sprouts go great with this dish too. So you buy broccoli and you wonder what to do with the stalk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the very tops, the florets, and I'm going to throw the florets in. Okay. So I'm using fresh broccoli. And then what I'm going to do is you have all these stalks left over. And what I like to do is I like to use the stalks for stock, for vegetable stock. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the very bottom and I'm going to compost that. And then I'm going to cut until my patience runs out. So I'm going to cut a little bit and cut it into as small cubes as I easily can. So I'm going to aim for 1/8 inch cubes. And I'm going to chop this up. And I'm going to throw this in. This is going to basically help create a broth and give me some additional flavor. And I can keep doing that. Let me do just a little bit more. You can put garlic in as well. Other vegetables that you like would go nicely. One thing I don't like to put in is onion at this point because with pressure cooking, the heat is so high that your onion loses a lot of its flavor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop the onion, which I'll do now, but I'll put the onion in at the end. So with onion, there's different ways of cutting onion. You can go with half moons. So what you do is you cut through to the center and you aim for 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch. But for this dish, I'm actually going to cube my onion. Okay? The half moon is nice when it's relatively raw because it envelopes your tongue and you get different flavor sensations. Especially with an onion like this. This is a sweet Vidalia onion. I like sweet onions much more than I like more pungent ones. So I'm going to chop my onion to about 3/8 inch cubes. And I'm going to save this. And when we're done with the pressure cooker, I'm going to put this in. And the heat in the pressure cooker is all that you need to cook it down a little bit, but not cook it too much. Okay, so at this point, I am ready to cook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect my onion to take outside to the pressure cooker. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do is I am going to, well, two things. I'm going to add water. Pressure cooking needs water. So I'm going to get my measuring cup and measure between 1/2 and 1/4 cup of water. So let's put a 1/2 cup in this. And then the bell pepper, what you do with this, I'm running short on time, but what I would do is I'd take this under running water and I would basically caress it. The skin comes off and then I chop it and I put it in the dish. And that's all there is to my pressure-cooked tofu and vegetables dish. Shall we go outside and see the finished version? This is the raw version. And what I would do is I would now take it out and pressure cook it. And let me wash my hands. And let's go outside and check out the version that should be ready. Or almost ready. Okay, so follow me. All right. And my daughter's here. Hey, sweetie. Hello. Is the dish ready? Yep. Excellent. How do you know?
Because the Instant Pot beeped.
Okay. And so to open the pressure cooker, what we do is we use a towel. And this is important when you pressure cook. And as I said, we'll probably have a show just on pressure cooking. But what I will do is I'm going to release the pressure. And if I do this with my hand, hot steam's going to come out and I'm going to burn myself. So if you're cooking lentils or beans, you want to slowly let the pressure out. In this case, I don't have to worry about that, so I'm just going to let it go. And there's not much pressure left, right? It's done. We can open it. And all this heat is going to go outside. Thanks, sweetie. So steam to the environment, not to our house. Vegetables and tofu, you can see how the kale cooked down. Looks healthy. It's easy. And here you go, sweetie. Give you a little sample because you still have to add seasoning. So try it without the seasoning. What seasonings do you like when I make this dish?
Salt, maybe some lemon pepper, and I like soy sauce in it.
Soy sauce goes great. So are the carrots soft? Mm-hmm. Great. So with that, easy peasy, pressure cooked vegetables with tofu. It's a great dish to make when it's really hot in the kitchen. It's a great dish to make year-round. It's fast, easy, and healthy. Thanks for visiting. With that, I'm excited to pass the baton to my friend Janin in Abu Dhabi. I can't wait to see what you're going to do, Janin. Take it away.
Wow, Dilip, what a wonderful place you worked at. When I come to visit you, I'd like to be there. Welcome everybody to my kitchen in Abu Dhabi. It's 10:15, so it's Saturday Night Live in Abu Dhabi here. My dish tonight is a very simple, delicious, raw veggie chili. And I've already cooked it because it's 10:15 and we had our dinner. So I'm going to show you what it looks like and how I've done it instead of really doing the whole food here. You see all the vegetables here. Reminder, all our recipes are online. On Facebook, you can find our booklet in PDF form with the recipes of every single cook from this evening. And another reminder, at the end, we have a question and answer session. So please write your questions as you watch, and then we'll get back to them. Anyhow, so here's my raw veggie chili. Raw because our theme today is cooking cool for summertime. This recipe has quite a lot of tomatoes, 1 pepper, half an onion, the kernels from 1 corn on the cob, 1 rib of celery, some zucchini. Recipe calls for 1 zucchini, but here in Abu Dhabi we have really tiny zucchini, so I use 2 of these. And then the second part of this dish is the mushroom meat, which has mushrooms and walnuts, some oregano and some cumin and some soy sauce. It's all easy peasy. As I said, you dice all the vegetables in small pieces. I like to keep them equally small, so it takes me a while chopping them. Here you can see perhaps that the corn kernels and the tomatoes and zucchini, everything is cut small. And then the tricky part, well, not so tricky, is to get your mushrooms, slice them nicely, and have a cup of walnuts, put them in the small mini primer gizmo, or if you have a food processor, put it in there, and pulse it a few times until you get a crumbly consistency. You need to have a little bite to it. So if you overdo it, it turns into a paste, and you want to avoid that. So just go easy, pulse, 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 and it turns into this amazing umami-filled topping for your chili. Once you've chopped all your vegetables, you put them in a bigger bowl and mix them. The fun part is you take half of that and put it into your food processor. In my case, I don't have one in my new kitchen, so I put it in here, half of it, and puree it. Once it's pureed, then you take it back and mix it with the chopped vegetables. So the 2 of them blend nicely, and with all the spices and herbs, it becomes an amazing mixture. It's fresh, it's raw, it's not putting heat into your kitchen, but there is a bit of heat. Speaking of heat, the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of chili powder, and I found that the chili powder in Abu Dhabi is really, really hot. The first time I made this recipe, I used the full thing and we could barely eat it. So for this evening's version, I used only half a teaspoon. What I'm trying to say is experiment with your recipes. Just because it says something, don't just do it. Adjust it to your liking. And with the chili powder that I have, my liking is only half a teaspoon. So here's the beautiful chili mix. I'll show you how lovely it looks. And in my recipes, I've also given you the instructions for making the cashew cream, which goes beautifully over it. Look at all the colors. And today I use the yellow bell pepper, and you can also use a yellow, red one or an orange one, just to add more color to your dish. So once you put the chili, you top it with the mushroom meat as much as you would like. It really adds a wonderful flavor to it. And then top it with a dollop of the cashew sour cream, and the recipe is in the booklet. And then sprinkle your parsley. In our house, it's parsley because my dear husband doesn't like coriander, fresh coriander. So, but coriander goes deliciously with it too, and some fresh green onions. Of course, have your lime on the side and a squeeze of lime. It's just perfect. We love it. Each of us, the recipe that I've given you is good for a full meal for 2 people, or just a small serving for 4 people to sample. It's really, really easy and delicious. When I was shopping for my vegetables, I found these mushrooms, and I don't know if you can see it there, but the packaging says that they are high in vitamin D, actually so high that it's got 5 micrograms per 100 grams. So it's quite a good serving of vitamin D. And I was curious about it, so I kept it in the packaging. And I coincidentally, I saw an article on nutritionstudies.org about getting your vitamin D from mushrooms. Apparently, all the mushrooms that we eat on a regular basis have this thing called a provitamin D4. And if you expose your store-bought mushrooms to sunlight for about 10-15 minutes, especially during midday high sun hour, then those mushrooms, using the provitamin D4, converted into vitamin D4. And apparently the shiitake mushrooms have all 3, vitamin D2, D3, and D4. And since vitamin D is really important for us as a really essential ingredient for our health and healthy bones and immune system and everything. And here, for example, Abu Dhabi, we have a lot of sun, but in the summer, we can't even hardly go out during the sunlight hours. It's so hot. So we need to supplement with vitamin D. And I think it's wonderful that now I have, along with vitamin D supplements, I can get it from my food. So if you're interested, go to nutritionstudies.org and check out that article. That's all I have to say about my dish today. Following me is Debbie Zimmerman in Lakewood, Florida. And she has a lot to say about a wonderful peachy dressing and a wonderful salad. Take it away, Debbie.
Thanks, John. And that looks absolutely awesome. And I love learning that about the vitamin D, the 3 of them in shiitake mushrooms. I do love those types of mushrooms. So I look forward to trying your recipe for sure. So today I am making a summer salad, and I am in Lakeland, Florida. Of course, Florida is very, very warm, and we are thankful that the hurricane isn't coming towards us, but we certainly are praying for the people in Louisiana. I know we have a Food for Life instructor out there, and hopefully she's going to be safe this weekend. So I'm starting with a fresh peach salad dressing, and basically I have my peaches, I have tofu, shallots. I also have a raspberry vinaigrette. It's raspberry white reserva. It is olive tap. If you've ever used olive tap salad vinegars. They are absolutely awesome. And I'm going to start by pouring that in. It is a thicker vinegar, and I use it in place of a salad dressing almost all the time on my greens and my salads. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add my shredded or my zested lemon, and I use the zest from one lemon. And now I'm going to squeeze my lemon in there. And if you have one of these wonderful lemon squeezers, it's super, super nice. And I'm just going to give that a good squeeze. And that's going to be about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And of course, when you use the fresh lemon juice, it's always very tasty. Okay, so I have that squeezed. And the next thing I'm going to add are my shallots. And I have them nicely diced, but of course they're going to be well blended. I'm going to add my pepper next, and then I'm adding some extra firm but silken tofu. And last but not least, of course, my fresh peaches. I don't know where everybody else is, but our grocery stores have plenty of peaches right now, and they are absolutely delicious. I believe they're coming from California, but they are fabulous. Now I'm going to mute myself for just 1 minute while I blend this up. Okay, so that didn't take too long. Now on my recipe, I mentioned that you could use some apple juice. And with the apple juice, if you do not want it's really according to how thick or how thin you want your salad dressing. But you can see that this is really a nice consistency. So I'm going to be leaving this without any apple juice. So that's going to be the topping for my salad. So next, I am going to start my salad, and I'm starting with a bunch of greens. This is basically, we have the spring mix, and it's half spring mix and it's half spinach leaves. So we have a really nice variety. And then I'm going to add all of my toppings. With any summer salad, you really could top it with anything. But this is something that I like to bring to other people's houses, especially those people who are not plant-based. So I know that I will have something that is going to be good for me. This can be my meal if I don't have anything else, if everything else is made with animal products. So this could be my meal. And basically I'm starting with my greens, and then I'm adding some chopped cabbage, and I'm using the red cabbage. I call it purple cabbage, but some people call it red cabbage. And my purpose here is to really make sure that I have lots of color on this plate. And I really encourage everybody, whenever you are making a meal, add as much color as possible, because each of those colors represent a different vitamin and different minerals. So always add as much color as you can to optimize your nutrition. The next thing I'm going to do is add some chopped carrots. And, when John was talking about mushrooms, of course, you could add mushrooms to this without any problem, and it would be absolutely delicious. I also have some little matchstick bell peppers, and I have the yellow and the orange because they're nice and sweet. And this is going to be a sweeter salad, of course. And then I have some really cute little tomatoes that I'm going to set around. And of course, tomatoes we can get almost any time of the year. Look how pretty that is. And then we have our blueberries. Blueberries have been very plentiful, but if you do not have fresh blueberries, you may want to try frozen blueberries and take them out maybe 10 minutes before you put it on your salad. And by the time you eat your salad, they're going to be defrosted. The next thing I am going to do is add some fresh pear. And pears right now, of course, are in season, and they are absolutely delicious. And you can see that I love a large salad, but I probably should have gotten a larger plate for this. The next thing I'm going to add are edamame, and the edamames are just awesome. And look how beautiful that is. All of the different colors. And then I'm going to top it off with just a few walnut pieces. And that is my summer salad. It is going to be nice and cool. This is something that could be put in the refrigerator, wrapped nicely and put in the refrigerator for later on today, or taken to a picnic, or taken, as I said, to a friend's house if you're having a covered dish dinner. I'm going to have my fresh peach salad dressing on the side, and it will be delightful. And truly, that is an easy meal that you can put together. There is absolutely no heat in the kitchen here. And that makes it very nice because we're dealing with the heat outside. So at this point, I want to send the focus over to Suzanne Dickman. And Suzanne is going to be showing us how to pickle garden veggies. And I can't wait to hear this. So Suzanne, you want to take it away?
Thanks. Thank you. I'm Susanna Dickman from Evansville, Indiana, and I'm excited to share with you something that I've been doing since my garden started producing this summer, and that is to make easy refrigerated pickled vegetables. We have been growing. So at the beginning of the summer, I went to a plant sale and I bought a pepperoncini plant. You might be familiar with pepperoncinis. If you go to a pizza place, sometimes they have them, they serve them along with the pizza. I would always buy the jars of pickled ones because we enjoyed them. When my husband makes seitan and kind of puts Italian seasonings in it, we would put some pepperoncini in there. So I was really, really excited to plant these. And oh my goodness, this plant has been producing. It is just amazing. So I figured out a way to help preserve these pepperoncini. And if you've eaten pepperoncini before, they really are not hot. They do have some capsaicin, but they're really low on the heat scale. So sometimes we'll just chop these up and add them to our salad. I'll add them to a stir fry. I think that the salad that you just saw, I think you could add these to that. I think they'd be great. Or even to Jana's salsa, you might add them to there. So the first thing I'm going to do, and we are going to keep it cool in the kitchen. The only thing that I am going to heat up is my brine. And for this recipe, for the pepperoncini, I have a couple of different brines that I like to use. For the pepperoncini, I like to use apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar, if you follow Dr. Greger, he has a number of videos that talk about the health benefits. It helps in aiding keeping blood sugar levels low. apple cider vinegar can also aid in weight loss. So it's a good vinegar to use when you're making salads or other things. What I have heating up here, and I'm just going to let it boil for just a minute, so we're going to have a real quick cool kitchen, is some apple cider vinegar, equal parts of apple cider vinegar and water, and some salt. So that I'm going to let that heat up a little bit. And while I'm doing that, I want to show you, I split my pepperoncinis just on one side. I'm just going to make a split down the pepperoncini. And that is just so when you put it in the jar and put the brine in, that it will get inside and soften the pepperoncini. So the first thing that's going to go in my jar, make sure that you have a clean mason jar. I'm going to put 3 pieces of garlic, making sure that when you are done eating the pepperoncinis, don't throw away the garlic, because it is going to absorb that apple cider vinegar and the other flavors, and it's just going to taste awesome. I'm going to put in some peppercorns, and I'm going to put in a bay leaf. And then I'm just going to start filling my jar with the pepperoncini. You want to really, really pack it in, because they're going to shrink a little bit once you get the, once they start absorbing the liquid. So I am just going to push them in, and then I'm going to pour in my brine. I think I can fit a few more. I'm going to show you, these you want them to sit in the refrigerator for about 3 days before you eat them, if you can wait that long. If not, go ahead and take them out the next day. Sometimes we have a hard time waiting that long, but let me pour in my brine, and I will show you the ones that have been in the fridge for about 4 days. So it's important to use a funnel, because you don't want to spill. And all you're doing is heating it up a tiny bit to make sure your salt is dissolved. So there you go. Let me see. You want to fill it up to the top. And it looks like I've done just about. It's going to fit perfectly. And then I am going to just put on my lid. So if you see there, you can see the water bubbling up. They're still kind of, they're light green once they get in the water. I'm going to let this sit on my counter for about 45 minutes until it cools. And then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and enjoy it in 3 days, maybe sooner. And it'll last up to a month in your fridge. This is my jar that has been in the fridge, and you can see the difference in color. So they've gotten a little, less bright. You can see the peppercorns in there and the garlic, which are awesome. I like to take the garlic and slice it real thin and add it to my salad, because they are so good. My bay leaf in there. These will keep for up to a month in your fridge. And we like, as I said, when we make seitan, if I have a sandwich, I just like to have that crunch. Okay, the next thing, and I'm going to pour, I had a little extra brine from that. So I'm going to pour it out here. And I have more pepperoncinis growing in my garden, so I will save this brine. Sometimes I will use it. It's just apple cider vinegar, water, and salt. I will use it as a liquid for salad dressing, just to add that extra kick. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make some pickled red onions. And I love to do this with red onions. We know that, the darker the vegetable, the more antioxidants. And so I like red onions. We pickle these overnight, and we use them when we make bean burgers, to sprinkle on our salad. They just add a little bit of flavor. So the brine for the pickled onions is just a little bit different. This time I'm going to use a cup of white vinegar, and I'm going to put some salt. My sweetener for this, I didn't use the sweetener for the pepperoncini. Here, I'm going to use maple syrup, about 2 tablespoons. You can choose agave nectar. The thing about pickling vegetables is you can really set this to your taste. If some people think apple cider vinegar is too strong, then use white vinegar. Maybe you like different spices. For the pickles, I like to use fresh rosemary sprigs from my garden. So I'm going to pour those in here too. And you could use fresh thyme, cumin seeds. There's really no wrong spice to choose while doing this. So I'm going to let this heat up for just a minute. Again, we're keeping it cool. And while I'm doing that, all I'm going to put in my jar for my pickled onions are the onions, because I have all my other stuff there. And I want you to see, I slice them fairly thin, so they are really thin. I love Dilip when you were talking about all the different sizes, because I really need to work on that. I don't know how thin these are, but I'm sure that Dilip would be able to tell me. So I'm going to pour, this was 2 small onions, and we got these onions from our farm share. And again, I just like to preserve them so that they last a little bit longer and then just have a little different flavor. And they look so great in the jar. I love opening my fridge and seeing all these jars of vegetables in there. So I'm going to let this heat up a little bit and make sure my things get incorporated. It's almost there. So you are only heating up your oven for your kitchen for just a minute. Oh, the rosemary smells so good. I'm going to pour that in. While I'm done waiting for that, I want to show you something else. So I have pickled red onions, pepperoncini, green beans. This year we grew yellow wax beans in our garden. And unfortunately, about a month ago, the bugs just really destroyed it. So these I actually pickled. I think I wrote on my calendar, I put these in the jar in my fridge exactly a month ago on July 28th. And we opened them today. Typically with the green beans, you want to pickle them. You want to keep them in the fridge for up to 3 months before you try them. These got a big thumbs up from everybody in my family. They're crunchy, they have that pickle. And I put the instructions for this too. This I use the apple cider vinegar. Again, you can see it gives it that kind of, light brown look. But these are really, really good. These are going to be fun. Just again, I'll make a dip and we'll have pickled vegetables. Oh, the vinegar really is getting to me there. Other things, okay, this is boiling. Other vegetables I pickle are carrots. I like to pickle radishes. We've been growing a few radishes. So let me get my funnel and I'm going to pour my liquid in here. Okay, I'm just about there, and then I'm going to take my sprigs out because I want to keep the rosemary in there. I want it to, just the flavors to really just incorporate. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to put my lid on, and you can use mason jars. I like to save. We buy a lot of things in jars, and so I like to save the jars so that I can reuse them. But there are my pickled onions. These are going to sit in the fridge overnight, and then I'm sure that my husband is going to be opening them up and using them. He'll find a way to use them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because He loves onions. These, just like the pepperoncini, you know, I'll just leave. It's a little bit warm, but not too bad, but I'll just leave it in the fridge until it gets, I'll leave it on my counter until it gets a little cool. And then I will put it in the fridge. But tomatoes, even, you know, we've got little cherry tomatoes growing, radishes, carrots, green beans, onions, cauliflower, any vegetable that you have and you want to keep, you know, prolong the shelf life of it. This is a quick and easy way to get it done. Put it in your fridge. We only heated our kitchen up for tiny little bit. We just, you know, heated these up, but these are really, really enjoyable. And we've been having fun this summer, pickling different things and just, you know, opening them up and going, wow, this is really good. And this is how we can use it. And again, you get to decide the spices. Garlic, cumin, rosemary, thyme. I have some fresh thyme. I would put those in with the onions too. So thanks for watching, and I hope you find some vegetables to pickle this summer. And next up is Tammy, and she's going to be making an eggless tofu salad. So I can't wait to see that. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Hello, friends, and thank you so much for that introduction, Susanna. That looks absolutely fabulous. I cannot wait to try your recipe. All right, my name is Tammy, and I am here in wonderful, sunny, and very hot Scottsdale, Arizona. And living in the desert in the middle of August, nobody wants to be doing any cooking, so I've got a wonderful recipe for you today that doesn't require any cooking whatsoever. I'm going to be preparing a vegan egg salad for you. Yes, a vegan egg salad. No eggs whatsoever in here. All right, so let's get to our ingredients. So first thing is first, I've got a package of medium firm tofu that has already been drained and pressed. You don't need a tofu press for this. All you need is some paper towels and just to get the moisture out. Squeeze it just a little bit. And then I've got some finely diced celery. I've got some green onions or scallions. And I've got some parsley and dill in here, fresh, that I've just finely chopped. I've also got some chives. And then we've got some vegan mayo. And you can either buy the store-bought brand or you can make it at home. I prefer to make it at home because it'll have a little less fat in it, and I actually use tofu for that as well. You can find many different recipes online. Whereas also have some Dijon mustard. We've got some nutritional yeast and apple cider vinegar. And then we have here our garlic powder, dried turmeric, and paprika that's in here. And then we've got our black salt, which isn't actually black in color, but it's actually like a dusty pink. And the black salt is really key to this recipe because this is what's going to give it that eggy flavor profile without the eggs. If you smell it, it smells just like eggs. It's got that sulfur profile, and this is just really key for this recipe. So don't omit the black salt. Black salt is also known as kala namak and is available at Indian grocers as well as regular grocery stores and online. And then I've got some freshly cracked black pepper. And then I'm gonna use a little pinch of cayenne pepper. And we're gonna go and get started. So first things first is we wanna mix our wet ingredients and then we'll add the tofu. So I'm going to mix in here our homemade vegan mayo. And then mustard. Our nutritional yeast going in, apple cider vinegar, and our seasonings. Okay, and I'm just going to add a dash of this cayenne. That's enough. All right, we're just going to mix this together, and this is going to be the base of our vegan egg salad. So it's going to be slightly yellow from the turmeric, which is good. All right. Then once this is well incorporated, just nice and smooth, we're going to add our tofu. Now, soy has gotten a really bad rap, unfortunately, but soy is actually so beneficial for men, women, people of all ages, the young and the old, and it's actually beneficial for health. So do not be afraid of soy. All right, so now everything is mixed together, you see, and I'm going to take this tofu and I'm just going to crumble this with my fingers. All right, that's going to go right on in there. And again, this was just dried, and you can make the pieces as big or as small as you like. And some pieces you can make bigger because when you make this with eggs, there are all sorts of different shapes, right? When you mash the egg together. So I'm just kind of mashing this up. Get this other half here. And this is such a simple recipe, and this also travels really well too. All right. And then on top of this, we're going to incorporate everything. Okay, and then we're going to add our greens. So we're going to add our dill, our chives, and our celery. Don't forget our scallions, gotta love the scallions. All right, and this is just smelling delicious. I wish you guys could smell this. Get some smell-o-vision here soon, maybe, as technology keeps improving. And last but not least, we're gonna add our dill and our parsley and chives. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and that is it. Super easy, super quick, and delicious. So you can use this recipe and put it over bread. You can do open-faced sandwich. You can do a regular sandwich. You can use pita bread. You can use lavash. You can just eat it on its own. You can put it over salad greens. I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'll print this up for you so you can see exactly how delicious and easy this is. I mean, really the possibilities are endless. You can use this with crackers as well. It's all good. So many possibilities. Just going to garnish this with a few pieces of romaine here. Gotta keep calm and romaine calm and keep on. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's the final product. There you go. The vegan egg salad. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you enjoyed this and hopefully you will try this delicious recipe at home. I'm gonna now turn it over to Jennifer. It has been a pleasure to prepare this for you today. Take it away, Jennifer.
Thanks, Tammy. That looks so fabulous. I can't wait to try it. Hey everybody, I am Jen and it's August, it's Louisiana, it's hot. So let's make some food that doesn't require any stovetop cooking, any heating up the kitchen. I am going to make for you today some vegan ceviche. If you're not familiar with ceviche, it originated in Latin America. It's actually the national dish of Peru, and it's normally made with fresh, very fresh seafood, and they cook it in lime juice. So the acid in the lime juice actually changes the protein in the fish and cooks it much like an oven would cook the fish. The problem is you have a very limited window that you can eat this, and you have to make sure it marinates long enough to cook the fish, and the fish has to be super fresh. There's a lot of complications. There's a high risk of food poisoning if you're not careful. Luckily, we don't have to use animal products in this dish. I'm going to use it with hearts of palm, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But we have no worries about bacteria growth on an animal product here. But anyway, let's dive in and make this vegan ceviche. So it's almost like a salad, or it is really a salad. And the first thing we're gonna do is make some pickled onions. I have some very thinly sliced red onion here, and we are going to cook it or pickle it with lime juice, 2 tablespoons of lime juice. This is about a 1/4 cup of red onion. And a little bit of salt. That helps with the pickling process. It helps break down the onions and sweeten them up and take that raw onion flavor out and make it like a pickled onion. So what you would normally do at home, you would make this ahead and put it aside while you're preparing your other vegetables, while you're chopping and prepping. But I've already done all the prep work, so in the interest of time, I went ahead and I have already pickled some red onions. I have it all done. What you would normally do at home, you would pickle these, or you would put the lime juice and the salt on your onions and put it in the bottom of your bowl. And as you're prepping your other ingredients, you would just layer them on top. And when you're done, you mix it all together. The onions have done their quick pickling process. But like I said, in the interest of time, I've done this ahead. But I'm going to go ahead and put that on the bottom of the bowl. So it is lime juice, salt, and red onion. And this is our fish part that would replace the fish that's normally used in a ceviche. This is hearts of palm that I have here chopped up. Now, if you're not familiar with hearts of palm, I'm going to tell you about it. So it normally comes in a brine. You can find it either in a jar or in a can. It's in the canned vegetable section, so usually by the artichoke hearts. And it is actually taken from a certain variety of palm tree. They cut down the stalks and cut down the palm and then take out the center stalks, and then they brine it. And it is a very low flavor profile, so it's easy to manipulate into all these great flavors, which is why it's a great substitute in this dish. But they're a wonderful thing. They're great to add to your salads because these three, this is about 3.5 ounces or almost 100 grams of hearts of palm, 3 of them. And that's only 35 calories right there. But it has 4 grams of protein, 4 grams of fiber. It has less than 1 gram of fat. It also has about 38% of your potassium requirements for the day, 70% of your copper requirements, 36% of your zinc. So it's loaded with great stuff, very low calorie, and it's a great addition to anything that you want to add it to. I love it. Anyway, so I have taken these stalks and I cut them down the center, sort of like a half moon, and then did them in larger portions because it's representing the fish that would normally go in this dish. So I'm going to put that on top. And the next item is about a cup of cucumbers, which I have quartered and thinly sliced. Lay that on top. And then I have about a cup of diced tomato, and I've seeded these tomatoes so it doesn't add a lot of extra juice to the dish. And one of my favorite summer flavors is cilantro, which is interesting because it is a cold weather herb, but it's so interesting how we use it all the time in summer dishes. Salsa especially great in here. It also calls for half a jalapeno, but Same with the cilantro and everything we're adding. Add it to your taste. So you're making this for you or your friends. I'm making this to share with some friends of mine who are not big on spices. So I have less than half a jalapeno, but very finely diced, so it gets spread throughout the dish and doesn't overwhelm you. Now the only spice I'm adding is a little bit of coriander for flavor besides the salt. I'm also going to add some avocado. Now this is an optional ingredient to add. Normally ceviche has olive oil in it, which a lot of people like that mouthfeel of the oil. And so the avocado is a very creamy texture, so it does add that mouthfeel to your dish, but you're also getting all the fiber and the nutrients with it, as opposed to when you're using an oil. And it's also optional. You can add it or not add it. If you don't like it, don't add it. If you don't like cilantro, add parsley. It will change the flavor of the dish, but you can certainly do that. And there's lots of optional ingredients you can put in this dish. A daikon radish is really good if you finely chop it up, or you can use a regular red radish. They're easier to find in the grocery store for you. Jicama, which is sort of a tropical root vegetable, is a wonderful thing. It's brown. You've seen it in the grocery store. It's big and brown, and it kind of looks like a potato. If you peel that and dice up the flesh, it kind of has like an apple taste and texture to it, but not as sweet. So that's a great addition to this. I'm going to add some mango to this because we love mango, and this is going to sweeten the dish up a little bit too. So I'm going to put, this is about a cup of mango in there. And so that's really it. Look at all those beautiful colors. I'm just going to stir it up. And what I'm doing now is I'm spreading that lime juice around on everything. And fortunately, we're making this ahead, which you want to do to get the flavors to meld a little bit. There's enough lime juice in there to keep your avocado from browning while it's marinating. If you want, though, you can wait and add the avocado right before serving. But you'll want to cover this and put it in the refrigerator for about a half hour. So let the flavors meld. But this is so good, made the day ahead. It lasts for quite a few days. You'll want to make sure you cover it tightly, though. There is the avocado in there just to keep the oxygen out, which does oxidate that avocado. But there should be enough lime juice for that. But look at this beautiful, beautiful salad. So you can serve it as a salad for dinner. A lot of places will serve ceviche in these little appetizer cups. So pretty and fun. And you can serve that with tostita chips or just like that. I love taking it and putting it on a hearty piece of lettuce and wrapping it up like sort of like a taco, which you can use. So get a whole wheat tortilla, put it in there and use it as a taco dish. But it's healthy, it's refreshing, it's cool. You'll feel like you're sitting on the beach of Mexico eating this wonderful dish in the summer, and no cooking required, and so easy to throw together. So I hope you give it a try and enjoy it as much as I enjoy it. Anyway, that's it for me. Now I'm going to pass you off to Angelita, who's going to make some wonderful summer rolls.
Hey guys, thanks Jennifer. I am definitely going to try that. Ceviche is one of my absolute favorites, so thank you for sharing that with us. Today I'm going to be making summer rolls, and sometimes they're called salad rolls as well, because you can toss all the ingredients together as far as your vegetables and then just roll them up. So today I'm using two different types of rice paper, and it's just made with rice, tapioca, salt, and let me see what else, and water. So this is made with turmeric. So it's a beautiful yellow color. And then we've got one that's made with brown rice. Almost has a pink color to it as well. And then they've got some that have sesame seeds in them. And then there's the clear ones, and those are made with the white rice. So I ran out of those. So for the sake of time, I've already made some ahead. But I'm going to show you how I wrap these. Now, everyone has a different way of rolling these up, because once these get wet, things start kind of slipping out. So this is the way I've been able to do it, and I've got my area set up. So I keep my cutting board wet, and so that way when I lay it down, it won't stick to it. So as you can see, these are kind of firm. So I have this cute little gadget that I bought at the Asian store. So I put my papers in the back, and then the front is filled with water. So all I do is put it in the water and then just slowly turn it until it's all completely covered in the water. You do not want to let it sit in the water because it's going to be really hard to wrap anything, and it still feels kind of firm, but it's all right. Another thing that I do is I keep a spray bottle with just water in it, and I just kind of spray it a little bit, and I keep a little ramekin with water in it, so then that way I can keep my fingers wet so they won't stick to the rice paper and cause it to tear. So what we're going to do here is I am going to put down what I want to see on the bottom of it or on the top of it when I'm done rolling it. So the recipe again is in the link, but please feel free to substitute any of that. Whatever vegetables you have, you're more than welcome to use those. Whatever fruit you have, you're more than welcome to make a sweet one, and you can just use, instead of using rice noodles, you can use a sweet rice or a black rice and then add your fruit to it. Okay, so this is not in the recipe, and I do apologize because I just found these. So these are some vegan shrimp that I'm going to be using. And so I just use one, and I cut it in half. Just straight down the middle, and then I'm going to lay it flat. I hope you can see it. Then I'm using these beautiful San Marzano tomatoes that came out of my sister's garden. So they are organic, and they're just absolutely just beautifully sweet. And then I've got these yellow pear tomatoes that she gave me as well, and I'm putting those right on top because you want a lot of color. It just makes it so pretty. I've got some carrots here that I made little matchsticks with. Got some fresh celery that's going right on top, and what we're doing, we're just piling everything on top of each other. I've got some seedless cucumber, and if you can't find the seedless cucumber, you can use a regular cucumber. Cut it lengthwise, and with a spoon take out all the seeds. Now, because I don't like to waste, so what I do is you can save the seeds and just put them in some water, and you can kind of sip on that throughout the day. I hope to keep refreshed. Okay, so I've got that on there, and I've got some beautiful avocado. Again, this is optional because avocado does have fat on it. And if you're really trying to watch your fat intake, then maybe you don't want to use that. And I've got my rice noodles. Now, I cook these, I put them in a bowl with boiling water, and I let them sit there, and then I rinse them, and I added a little bit of the rice wine to it to keep them from sticking, but they're still kind of sticky. So a trick that I've learned by making these is I just spray them with a little bit of water, and I cut these with some scissors, that way they won't be everywhere, and then I just sit them right on top. Rinse my fingers, and I come over here, and you can use any type of green that you like. I didn't have any romaine. I thought I did, but I have lots of spinach. So I'm putting the spinach right on top, and hopefully this won't tear. I'm bringing this over the top. I'm trying to do it backwards so you guys can kind of see. And then I'm bringing the sides over. And if you've ever rolled a burrito, it's very similar to that. Then you bring this the other side over as well. Keep your thumbs right here where you just brought it over. And as you start rolling, just tuck it in. Tug at it, but don't be too tough with it. You don't want it to break. And there you go. That is your roll. All right, and like I said, I've already made some ahead of time. The thing I like about these is you've got a lot of vegetables in your refrigerator and you're just like, there's no way we're going to eat all this. This is perfect to get the family involved, get the kids involved. And then you get to eat all those vegetables, and it's just a really nice way to spend some time together, and let the kids just kind of add their favorite thing to it. The sauce that I made is a Hoisin, hope I'm saying that right, peanut butter sauce, and the recipe is there as well. And the only time you're going to turn on the stove is to make this sauce, and it's absolutely delicious. It's so creamy. If you have some of this sauce left over, I doubt you will, but if you do, you can use this in some noodles as well. That's another way to use up that sauce and have the kids make that. Now, I use peanut butter powder to try to cut down on some of the fat. And this is what I use, and it's 2 tablespoons to 1.5 tablespoons of powder to 1.5 tablespoons of liquid to kind of get that creamy consistency. But it depends on how you like it. If you like it a little bit thicker, then you can reduce that. So the Hoisin peanut butter sauce does have maple syrup. It doesn't have any salt because I'm using rice wine. And so that has some salt in it. And I did put a little bit of sriracha in there because I like the spice. But anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. It's quick and easy, and this is what it looks like. So you can wrap these in cellophane individually, and you can pack these up for a picnic, or you can also pack them up for lunch, or take them to a neighbor or a potluck, or just make a few of them. And if you're in a hurry, take them with you, put them in your little lunchbox, and you're ready to go. All right, so that's all I have. I know my segment's pretty quick, but anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys, and I'm getting ready to have some lunch. But anyway, thank you so much for spending time with us. And up next, we have Suzanne, who's going to make vegan yogurt. I can't wait to try that. Yogurt is absolutely one of my favorites. Thank you so much. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Angelita. Those summer rolls look absolutely delicious. I will definitely try those as well. So thank you everybody for joining us today. And I'm going to be making yogurt. We're all so accustomed to our fast, busy lifestyles that most of us spend a lot of money and purchase yogurt for a couple bucks for just a little container, especially when you're purchasing dairy-free yogurt. They tend to be more costly, but they're really not expensive to make when you make them on your own. So today I'm going to be using, I will probably use the soy, or sometimes I'll mix soy and oat or just oat. But the most important thing when you're looking for a dairy-free alternative for making yogurt is to be sure to have a milk that is really just the nut or the oat and water. You really want to avoid anything that has added oils. One, because it's added fat that's unnecessary, but also because it actually prevents the culture, the yogurt probiotic, from actually becoming thick and creating a really dense probiotic source. So definitely always look at the ingredients. So Oatly is one brand that is very clean, and West Soy is another soy milk brand. The other thing is that both of these I have off of the shelf. These are shelf-stable containers versus out of the refrigerated section, which is really nice because you're already dealing with something that's room temperature. When we start to go through the recipe, you'll see that one of the first steps is to boil your milk, and that's really for pasteurization. But when you're using one of these products, that's an unnecessary step. So we can skip that as part of our process. And I'll show you also using an Instapot how easy it is with the yogurt function that's right on the Instapot. So the first thing we're going to do is choose which milk we want. And today I'll just use the unsweetened, organic, plain soy milk. Before I actually pour this in here, I just want to show you that if you have the little slat insert, you can actually use that in the Instapot, and you could pour your yogurt right into the containers and culture it right in there, and you can just stack these around the center of the Instapot. And or you can also make it right in the stainless steel container of the Instapot, or you can also insert a glass bowl into the Instapot, which is what I'm going to do today. It makes it very easy for just putting a lid on and putting them in the refrigerator when you're done. And the small containers are also really easy because you can just put those lids on, put those in the refrigerator, and then take them with you, and they're ready to go. Especially with back to school season, this is a great way to save money. Don't waste, plastic containers, and reuse glass or plastic if you have those as well. So the first step is the milk into the Instapot, or into this glass bowl, because you wouldn't be able to see much if I did it in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour the milk right in. And this is exactly 1 quart, 4 cups. And the next step is we have to think about how we're going to thicken our yogurt. So one of the things about non-dairy yogurt is that it tends to be not as thick as traditional milk yogurts. But there are lots of ways that you can make a thick yogurt, either by using thickeners. Like here I have agar-agar, which is a kelp-based thickener, which is also really nice because that also adds iodine to your diet. So it's a sea vegetable thickener. And the next step is to actually thicken this process. So we're going to use a 1/4 cup of boiling water. And this is so that we can melt the agar-agar. 2 tablespoons of agar-agar. Three tablespoons of lemon juice. And this provides a little bit of tartness. And the culturing process itself, the fermentation process itself, also creates tartness. So the longer you let this incubate, the more tart your yogurt will be. We're going to add a little bit of sweetness with 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And then we're going to blend. We're going to blend that right in. And that'll help break up the agar-agar flakes. Now, if you're lucky, your grocery store may have agar-agar powder, which then you could dissolve it a little bit easier and really not need to blend it. So I'm going to go ahead and blend this for a second. And I apologize. That was not plugged in. I'm going to go ahead and just blend it. And we're going to slowly mix this. And that was boiling water that I added in, the 1/4 cup of boiling water, because that's what's needed in order to dissolve the agar-agar. I'm going to go ahead and pour that in and gently whisk it. So you can tell that that's nice and dissolved now. And then I'm going to add in a can of coconut milk. And now this is coconut cream. So the full fat coconut cream. You don't want to use the low fat because it will not get as thick and not as creamy. And we'll slowly mix that in. And now you're going to add your culture. And when you're buying a culture starter, you do want to be careful that you are using a vegan culture starter. Some cultures are created off of a milk base, so therefore they're not vegan. So you do want to look for a culture starter. Another choice that you could make is to use a probiotic capsule and just empty out the capsule into your milk. And it's about 2 capsules for 4 cups of milk. But certain probiotics have different flavors, and so it may change the flavor of your yogurt. One that is really not noticeable is called PB8, and that's a great product to use and very readily available at most Whole Foods or vitamin shops and on Amazon. So this vegan starter is called Bella Bella. Another thing you want to be sure of is that you're using a culture that is within the date. You don't want to use an old one because the chances of the bacteria not being live and not fermenting as well as a fresh one is pretty high. So you always want to make sure that you look at that date and don't use one that is old. And the great thing about making your own is, as I talked about before, storage and usage and cost is also definitely a factor. You can already see this almost starting to thicken up a little bit from blending that agar in. The agar is also available as a powder, but it's just difficult to find that way. But if you are lucky enough to be able to buy that, that'd be great. Then you just very carefully set this into your Instapot. And this bowl's a smidgen big. So actually today I'm just going to pour this right in. And we're going to go ahead and put the lid on. And you'll see the Instapot will turn right on. There's a yogurt button on my machine. Not every Instapot machine has this yogurt button. But even if it doesn't, you could turn your temperature on very, very low and put the lid on and just let it sit. There are tricks I've read online to go ahead and teach you those tricks to use an Instapot without the yogurt button as a yogurt maker. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to hit the yogurt button and we're going to put it to normal. And I like to incubate mine for 14 hours. And so that can change depending upon the amount of yogurt that you have in there and also the ingredients that you use. If you're using if you make your own cashew milk, then it doesn't need to sit as long if you just use cashews and water and create your own milk, because that tends to be thicker to begin with. But the longer you let it incubate, the more tart your yogurt will taste. So the other thing to know about the Instapot when you're using it in the yogurt setting is that it counts down from 0. So most of the time it usually counts backwards. But when you're in the yogurt setting, it counts down from 0. So that's all you have to do. It's that easy. It takes about 14 hours, like I said. So when your timer beeps, you go ahead, you can just lift the pot. Whether it's in steam or vent doesn't make a difference. So you don't need to worry about that setting. Once the timer goes off and you go to take the lid off, you also don't need to release anything either. You don't need to release any pressure because there's really no pressure built up in the yogurt maker. So what I have here are 2 different ones that I've created. So this yogurt was an oat milk yogurt, and it turned out a bit thin. And sometimes that happens when you're making yogurt. Sometimes it just doesn't come out exactly the way you planned. However, it's still absolutely delicious. So this is more of a pourable, drinkable yogurt. It's also great for even using as a sauce on top of a cake or over fruit. In this case, I'm going to take the other yogurt that I made that was actually really thick and make a couple parfaits. And the great thing about using these jars is that you can create a parfait. You can layer some yogurt and fruit. And you can create a beautiful dessert to serve, whether it's for a brunch, a dessert for a party. Yogurt is a great, cool, and refreshing treat. And if you're going to make these ahead of time, which I highly recommend, and they're adorable, I would leave the granola off. And the reason for that is because the granola will get soggy in the fridge. So you can store these like this, bring them to a party, take them to lunch, take them to a picnic. They're a great, delicious parfait to have. Another thing to do with the pourable yogurt is if you have a recipe that you're using, that you're maybe making a cake or a bread and you need milk, this actually is a great substitute for that. It offers great flavors. So that is how you simply make yogurt. It is very, very easy. I hope you'll give it a shot at home. And remember, it's a process, and sometimes you mess up and you have a more thin yogurt, but it's still delicious. It's more of a yogurt drink. Or sometimes you're really lucky and you end up with a really beautiful thick yogurt that's great to make parfaits with. So I'm going to hand off the screen to Nancy Manifold. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, Suzanne. Your parfaits look absolutely wonderful, I have to say. So yes, I'm Nancy, and thank you for joining me. So I've just got back. I live in England. I've just got back from 3 very hot, humid weeks in Ontario. And I agree with Tammy, when it's that hot, nobody is fighting to get into the kitchen. So what I am making today is a chocolate Snickerdoodle hummus, which requires no cooking at all. Now, the purists will say that chocolate and hummus should never be in the same sentence, but I would disagree because chocolate hummus is really, really good. And it makes a fantastic snack because it's full of protein and fiber. And as I say, no cooking, and you can use it to dip apples. You can spread it on toast in the morning. You can dip pretzels. And it's a really good picnic food as well. But it's very healthy for kids, and as I say, it's high in fiber. So I'll go through that now, and the base of it, as with most hummus, is chickpeas. Now, when you pour out your chickpeas, when you drain them, do it into a measuring pitcher or something to hold on to the liquid, because the chickpea draining liquid is also called Aquafaba. And how anybody discovered that Aquafaba has these wonderful properties, I have no idea. But what Aquafaba can be used for is it can replace egg whites in cooking. So it can be whipped into a meringue, pavlova. It can be whipped and folded into batters to make them lighter and fluffier. So it's always useful to keep the liquid, which is the Aquafaba. And we'll be putting a little bit of that into the hummus anyway. So I have the chickpeas here. Chickpeas are very high in fiber, a really good source of protein, and a really good source of iron and calcium. So it's all the good things that if your kids are having this as a snack, it's very good for them. Now, in terms of fiber, fiber is the part of the plant that our gut cannot digest and absorb. And a diet high in fiber, so the US recommendation is 30 grams of fiber a day. The average American intake is only 16 grams. So rather than everybody focusing on getting enough protein, what we should really be focusing on is getting enough fiber, because higher fiber diets are associated with a much lower risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, bowel cancer, and hypertension, and obesity. Okay, so we've got the fiber there, the chickpeas, also the fiber. And the next thing that goes in is the almond butter. So you can use, it's half a cup. Just to mention, that's a 15-ounce can of chickpeas. Now, if you're making this in England, it's actually a 400-gram tin, because that's the closest you can get to the 15 ounces. And I'm spilling my almond butter here, but this is half a cup of almond butter. And if you're measuring out, because we do in England, we measure it out weight-wise, it's 130 grams. So that's almond butter. Now you can use peanut butter, or you can use tahini. If you have nut allergies in the family, but everybody's fine with seeds, then tahini is great. It provides the same healthy fat. So the nice thing about almond butter is it provides healthy monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, and it's very low in saturated fat, which is just how you want it. It's also a fantastic source of calcium, and also vitamin E, which is an antioxidant. And it's also a good source of something called manganese, which is important for bone growth and development, just as calcium is. Okay, so that's the almond butter. And then we have the cocoa powder. So cocoa powder is the ground down cocoa bean after the cocoa butter is removed. Now, chocolate gets a bit of a bad rap because the way we tend to eat chocolate is mixed in with cream and dairy and very rich foods. But cocoa powder itself is actually very healthy. It is very high in an antioxidant called the polyphenol, and specifically flavonoids, which has a strong association with reduced risk of heart disease. All right, so cocoa is actually quite good for you, and it's a very good source of iron. Okay, now for this recipe, there's 1/4 cup, which is 20 grams of cocoa. I would suggest not going too strong on the cocoa, any stronger than that, because cocoa can have a little bit of bitterness, and if you put too much in it, it will give a bitterness to the final recipe. And then because I am Canadian, it's got maple syrup in it. So it's 1/4 cup or 60 mils of, or 85 grams of maple syrup. Okay, so it's only 4 tablespoons. And maple syrup, interestingly, because it comes from the maple tree, it's a plant, it's actually a very good source of manganese, which again, as with the almonds, is very important for helping the gut absorb calcium. So it contributes to healthy bones. Okay, now the last 2 things we are adding is vanilla, which gives it, just brings out the flavors nicely. So it's a teaspoon of vanilla. And then the very last thing, well, actually not the last thing, but the last ingredient is salt. It's only 1/4 teaspoon of salt, but it's an important ingredient because the salt brings out the flavor of the chocolate. So just 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So that goes in. And then now the last thing is the aquafaba. So if you have accidentally poured your aquafaba down the sink, which is not unheard of, it's very easy to do, you can use water instead. But if you've kept your aquafaba, add 2 tablespoons of aquafaba to the mix, okay? And then I'm going to, and then that's it. And all you do, oh, that's not very good. There we go. And I'm going to add, if it's not quite the consistency that you want, then just add a little bit more of the aquafaba. The other thing is you can add a bit more maple syrup if you want it sweeter, but it's not actually necessary. But it's everybody's personal taste. Okay, and I'll just there we go. Okay, and that's done, and it's quick and easy. And you know, when everybody's going in and out of the house and just wanting to grab something quick from the fridge, that instead of having some highly processed, unhealthy chocolate dip, your kids and everybody else in the house are getting really healthy food. And because it's high, excuse me, because it's high in fiber, it's absorbed, the energy from it is absorbed slowly into the bloodstream, so it keeps everybody going for quite a while. It's not just a quick sort of surge of sugar and then nothing. It actually provides energy for a long time. Okay, so there we go. And those are some apple slices, and it goes really nicely together. The apple slices, the juice from the apples, and you dip it with the Snickerdoodle hummus, and it's very good. And as I say, great source of fiber and protein and all sorts of other healthy nutrients. And I would just quickly say that if for anybody who would like to know more about the benefits of fiber in the diet, and I cannot overstate the importance of fiber in the diet for health and feeling good and weight loss and weight management, The Physicians Committee, if you didn't know, has a very good podcast called the Exam Room Podcast. And if you listen to any of the podcasts with Dr. Will Bolsowitz or Dr. Alan Desmond, they are both gut doctors, and they will tell you everything you need to know about the benefits of fiber. So thank you. That's it for me. A nice little quick snack for everybody. And I'm now handing over to Carolyn, who is going to show you how to make overnight oats.
Thank you, Nancy. Great to see you. All right, that looks wonderful. I want to try that dish really soon because that looks fabulous. Love chocolate, love hummus. Great combination. Today I am making something here in Montgomery, Alabama, where it is very hot all summer long, but now it's August and wow, is it hot. So we've had some pretty hot temperatures here this week. Right now it's actually raining. You might hear some thunder in the background in just a second. It is pouring rain. And we do have that hurricane headed toward us too. So I'm thinking about Jen today, who's in Shreveport, Louisiana, because she's really about to get hit with that. So I am making overnight oats and chia. This is something that we make at our house several times a week and have it for breakfast, not just in the summer, but in the winter. So I'll talk about how you can change it up for the winter. But in the summer, what I do is take a jar, and you could do it in a bowl too. I like the jar. And this is a really interesting jar I found at Target. It's a Ball brand jar, and it actually fits in a cup holder in the car. So I send these with my husband to work in the morning on his way because it fits right in the cup holder. So if you can't find one of these, you could use a regular size mason or ball jar. But all I'm going to do is take oats, 1/4 cup, 1/4 cup of whole rolled oats. You don't want to use instant because it's going to get a little too mushy that way. So 1/4 cup of whole rolled oats. And as Nancy just said, fiber is super, super important. We know that oats contain a large amount of soluble fiber, which is super good for you. So diets that are very high in fiber can decrease our risk of cardiovascular disease and colon cancer. So we also lowers cholesterol. So when we lower our cholesterol, then it decreases our risk of heart disease. Oats in particular contain a specific kind of fiber called beta-glucan. And we know that beta-glucan actually reduces our risk of cardiovascular disease by decreasing what we call the bad cholesterol. So that's super important. And then we're adding a 1/2 tablespoon of chia seeds. And chia seeds are so cool. Yes, they are the exact same chia seeds that you remember from those Chia Pet commercials in the 1990s, chia, and it grew green hair on things. So it's exactly the same chia seeds that you saw on those commercials. Luckily, somebody figured out they're actually also really good for you, and they don't just grow green hair on odd little sculptures. Anyway, so chia is really a fabulous source of omega-3 fatty acids, and omega-3 fatty acids are really, really important in our diet. So we know that foods that are high in omega-3 fatty acids can actually help your brain produce serotonin, which decreases your risk of depression. And can lead to improved mood, so and do lots of other great things for us. But sometimes you'll hear that the only way you can get omega-3 fatty acids is through things like fish and fish oil, and that is not true. So chia seeds contain a great amount of omega-3 fatty acids. Other foods that you can find omega-3 fatty acids in are things like broccoli and spinach, sprouted radish seeds, which is kind of odd, flax seeds, grape leaves also contain it, and walnuts. Walnuts are an excellent source of omega-3 fatty acids. So you do not need to take fish oil, just add chia seeds or flax seeds. Sometimes I actually throw flax seeds into my overnight oats as well. So this is just 1/4 cup of whole rolled oats, a 1/2 tablespoon of chia seeds, and then I have a 1/2 of a cup of unsweetened almond milk. So I'm just adding that. And that's really the basic recipe right there, just those 3 ingredients. But what I do is usually jazz it up just a little bit with a tablespoon or so of raisins and a pinch of cinnamon. Cinnamon is great for you. It's high in antioxidants, wonderful tasting too. And then a little bit of maple syrup, you know, half teaspoon to a teaspoon of maple syrup. Give it a stir, or you don't even have to stir it. You could just put a lid on it and shake it up. Put a lid on it nice and tight. Give it a shake. That's all you have to do. And put it in the refrigerator overnight. So this is one that went in the refrigerator last night, and I could just give it another shake. And there's a lot of room, you'll notice, left in the jar. This is because we're going to add all kinds of yummy things into this jar. So this is already done. The oats are very smooth and creamy, and you don't have to cook them. They just soaked up all that wonderful almond milk. Now, if it's a little too thick, you could just add some more almond milk, maybe another splash. If you think it's too thick, really this one was about perfect. And in this jar, I'm going to add some of our wonderful summer fruits that are available locally. So we have blackberries and raspberries, and I have fresh peaches because Alabama has an abundance of peaches every summer. We love peaches. And maybe some blueberries and some strawberries. Wow. Okay, that got full really fast. And then some pecans, because right now it's actually pecan season in Alabama. So we'll throw in some pecans and then just give that a stir, mix it all up. This is an excellent breakfast to take with you if you're on the go. Super easy to make. You just make it the night before. No cooking involved at all. Stir that all up. And that is a big, delicious jar of yummy oats and chia and raisins and all kinds of wonderful fruits. So you can also make this in the winter time. Here's the really cool thing. You do the exact same thing. You just take that same jar, soak it in the refrigerator overnight, and then the next morning, because it's a glass jar, it can go in the microwave. So just microwave it for 30 seconds, 45 seconds on maybe medium power, and heat it up a little bit. Nobody wants a freezing cold breakfast in the middle of the winter. And then maybe instead of all these summer fruits, add some chopped apple and some walnuts and maybe some pears. That is a great breakfast in the winter too. So easy to do it 2 different ways. But this is my favorite summer breakfast. We eat this 2-3 times a week, so maybe more, because it's just so delicious and so easy, and it's already ready when you wake up. You just throw in whatever fruit you want first thing in the morning, and you're good. And it even fits in your cup holder if you get a glass jar like this, or you could put it in, you know, regular jar or whatever. But it's super easy. I hope you'll give it a try. No cooking involved. Keeps your kitchen cool. Oh, and I forgot one quick other, a friend of mine mentioned to me this morning at the farmer's market, the way she likes to do it is with a spoonful of peanut butter and a little spoonful of jelly. And so you could use peanut butter powder or a spoonful of actual peanut butter, mix it in, and then a spoonful of all natural jelly that has no added sugars. It's just 100% fruit. And you have peanut butter and jelly overnight oats too. Delicious. That sounds really good, and I can't wait to try it. So, and now I'm going to send you over to my friend Karen, who is in Austin, Texas, and she's making something with peaches as well, my favorite summer fruit.
Thanks, Carolyn. How nice to have breakfast ready for you when you wake up, right? So I am standing here with peaches coming, like, smells so good. Peach season's in full swing. It's still hot in Texas, like everywhere else. So I do appreciate recipes where you don't have to heat up your kitchen. And today I'm going to make a peach cobbler that you don't have to cook. It's very simple. It's got 6 ingredients. It's peaches, dates, lemon juice, that's optional. Salt is optional. Vanilla extract and rolled oats. And peach season is, summer, midsummer to late summer. But there is a National Peach Cobbler Day, which is in April. And that was created in the 1950s by the Georgia Peach Festival to promote the sale of canned peaches. But this recipe is so good with fresh peaches, and it's a cobbler that is still nutritious. I think it's even better than cooked. Gives you that burst of peach flavor in every bite. So the way cobbler supposedly came about was settlers traveling west didn't have the tools or the ingredients to make pie, so they stewed fruit and then put raw biscuit dough on top of that and cooked it over an open flame. And the way the crust came out on the top was like cobbled, like a cobbled road, or just resembled that. And they said it looked all cobbled together, so they called it cobbler. Whereas a pie would have a smooth crust on the bottom and a smooth crust on the top. But this one is so delicious. And like the cooked version, like when you cook those peaches down, you get this sweet, thicker syrup around your peaches. We're going to still have that, but we're not going to cook it. Peaches are a good source of beta carotene, which converts to vitamin A in your body. It's good for your healthy skin, helps with night vision, and then there's no sodium, no cholesterol. It's a good source of potassium, which regulates your heartbeat and your blood pressure. And it's also a good source, peaches are a good source of vitamin C. And you need that for connective tissue collagen and your immune system, to support your immune system, eliminate free radicals. But that vitamin C is damaged by heat. So we're going to preserve that by making a cobbler this way. So I'm using white peaches, by the way. And white peaches are less acidic than the yellow peaches. So they taste sweeter. They might not be sweeter, but they taste sweeter to your tongue. And I had 6 of them to start with, and I've just diced 4 of them and put them. It's a 1-bowl dish. We're not going to have a lot of things to wash. And then by not cooking it, you don't have any crust that sticks to the side. So I'm going to put the diced peaches aside for just a few minutes. And then I have 2 of the peaches, and you don't need to peel them. I'm going to just lower my screen a little bit. Just a little, maybe a little more. But I'm just going to put the other 2. You just want to take out the pits, the seeds. So I'm going to put the 2 peaches in the blender. And then I have 4 dates. These are medjool dates. So this is a natural sweetener. It's also got the fiber and the minerals that are going to help you use the sugar that's in this fruit. And so I've just taken the seeds out of the dates, and that is, yes, that's it. Actually, you can put the lemon juice in here if you choose, a little bit of lemon juice to brighten it up. Then we're going to blend it smooth and mix it in with our diced peaches. So I'm going to make a little noise. And bring back my diced peaches. So the dates help this syrup kind of thicken up a little bit. And we're just going to pour it into our peaches and stir it. Make our crumbled topping. Just stir that up. And while I'm stirring it, I'm going to add a cup of rolled oats into the food processor fitted with S-Blade. Have 6 more dates that I've pitted. And just a little vanilla extract. And salt is optional, just brings out the sweetness. And I'm just going to process this until it gets crumbly and begins to stick together. Do that at the same time. Stir it. So I am using the white peaches, but this works with white peaches, yellow peaches, white nectarines, yellow nectarines, and any other kind of fruit. Just about any kind of fruit. And then you're just going to, I'm going to take this out. Have the date and oat crumble. And just kind of crumble it over the top. And we have a delicious, refreshing peach cobbler. And how easy was that? So I hope you guys will try it. It is delicious and refreshing. Now I'm going to pass it over to Mark Sergvinick, Chicago, for another peach recipe. Take it away, Mark.
Hey, thanks, Karen. Hi, everybody. It's Mark Sergvinick, feeling a little bit under the weather here. I have one of those nasty summer colds, so bear with my little bit of congestion today. But we've got a really super easy, I call it my easy peasy peach sorbet, and it's only got 3 ingredients. Yep, 3 ingredients. So I'm here in Chicago, just actually south of Chicago, actually closer to the Indiana border, so we're only about an hour and 20 minutes from beautiful Michigan peaches. And my wife and I went last couple of weeks ago actually and got a half a bushel of peaches. Last year, right in the height of the pandemic, we had 4 bushels of peaches and are still eating some canned ones from last year. So this variety of a peach is called a Red Haven peach. It's pretty common variety here in the southwest Michigan area, and there's actually about 300 varieties of peaches grown in the U.S. and about 2,000 worldwide. But Red Haven is pretty common. It's a medium sweet peach, a little furry on the outside, has a really nice flesh. So my recipe, which is included in the entire recipe document that you've seen posted throughout the comments and is available on this Facebook page, So Many Cooks in the Kitchen, has my recipe in there. So real simple recipe. The recipe that I have posted there calls for 10 peaches. She's still alive, almost jumped out of my hands. Calls for 10 peaches. I'm making a half batch. I made a half batch. I've already got prepared for you because you've got to freeze, of course, got to freeze a sorbet. But I'm just going to finish my batch up here. I've already put about 4 peaches in here, 4 or 5 peaches in here. So I'm just going to take this last peach, and then one of the things I like about Red Havens are that the pit comes out really easy. See, just kind of pull that out, and you just get this little bit of leave behind fleshiness from the pit, and then I just continue to quarter that peach up, quarter each half, and then this just goes in a blender. Now the recipe, you'll note that the recipe will say you can go ahead after you blend all this to strain it through a sieve. You don't need to do that if you don't like to look at all those little brown bits that are left behind from the skin of the peach. You can go ahead and strain it. I'm not a purist when it comes to that. I like all the skin and everything. I like to eat the skin on a potato, be that sweet or red or brown or Yukon Golds. I like to eat the entire vegetable. So you can sieve this though, but my recipe I've not strained it through a sieve or anything. The next addition are some Medjool organic dates. I get this at our local Costco. You just want to pull the pit out of there. Real easy, just kind of push it through your fingers like that. Sometimes there's a little stem end on there. You want to pull that off, but the recipe calls for 5 Medjool dates for the 10. So I put about 3 Medjool dates in this half a batch here. Oh, and then as Karen had noted, to add some brightness to this dish, we're going to put in a tablespoon of lime juice. Lime or lemon juice are really kind of the universal brightener to any kind of dish. So you'll see a lot of soup recipes will add lemon to it just to brighten the dish. Sometimes I'll experiment and add lemon in. I'd say the majority of the time you put a little bit of lemon juice in a soup or a stew, it will add that little bit of brightness and that freshness to it. Certainly as a condiment on a salad, especially in the summertime, squeeze some lemon or lime on a salad along with some liquid aminos. It's for really simple salad dressing. So once you get your peaches in there, your Medjool dates, and your lime or lemon juice, just go ahead and throw it in that blender and hit it for high until everything's really nicely pureed. I have a Ninja. If you have a Vitamixer, you probably even have less of those little brown bits. But I'm just going to run this really quick here. And you kind of get the idea. And then all you'll do is take this out and pour it in a freezer-proof container. I like to use these little takeaways, Rubbermaid takeaways. I'll freeze those up, or you could put these in little individual servings as well. So now you'll pour your sorbet right into this and freeze it. I would make this, for example, if I was making this for dinner in the evening, I'd want to make it first thing in the morning, or you can make it today and eat it tomorrow. But then you're going to want to take it out and let it thaw a little bit. So the thing that I realized a little bit before the show is my sorbet was ice cold, frozen. I put it outside. We're at about 100 plus heat index today in Chicago, and in about an hour thawed out really nicely. But here's my sorbet that I made yesterday. I'm just going to take a couple of scoops of that and just kind of dig right into that. You'll see what would be a really nice addition to this would be a little mint leaf. We don't have any mints, or perhaps even a little drizzle of some vanilla extract, or a little bit of sprinkled cinnamon, or some aquafaba. You might recall that if you've been following us for a while. I made that several shows ago when we were talking about desserts. The aquafaba is made from the the viscous liquid of chickpeas. I just whip that up. It's just like a whipped cream, and add that to the top of it. Or you can just eat the sorbet all by itself. Really simple. 3 ingredients: is peaches, Medjool dates, and a little bit of lime or lemon juice. And give that a taste here. So fruity, refreshing. That brightness of the lemon is just fantastic. I know a couple of us have mentioned, we have one of our colleagues, Jen, is down in Louisiana, and Carolyn's also closer to the Gulf Coast as well. And in Montgomery, Alabama, our hearts and our prayers go out to them as the hurricane hits, and we're seeing more and more climatic events, such as the wildfires and hurricanes and floodings. And what can we do as vegans? Well, I really want to encourage you to check out this book, Food is Climate, by Glenn Mercer. Several of the Food for Life chefs, Carolyn, for example, myself, Karen, and I think Tiffany, who's been on the show as well, have submitted recipes to this. But the first half of the book, actually the first 60 pages of the book, lays out how food really impacts our climate, and our food choices, specifically meat and the meat industry, really strongly negatively impacts the climate. So read the book. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the Q&A. Highly recommend this. book, Impeccable References. But Food is Climate by Glenn Merzer. You can get this on Amazon, either in paperback or in Kindle. And when you buy the book, you're also eligible to get 25 additional recipes as well. So with that, thank you very much. Try my sorbet. And now I'd like to kick it over to Cody in beautiful Nebraska. Cody, take it away.
Thanks, Mark. Your peach sorbet looks fantastic. Hi, everyone. I am Cody Stubbe. I'm a registered nurse and a Food for Life instructor in Omaha, Nebraska. And today I have my lovely guest with me. This is my youngest daughter, Nora. She just turned 5 a few weeks ago, right, Nora?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and you're going to help me today, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Oh, I'm so glad to have you today. Thanks for coming, sweetheart. It's so fun cooking with you. Do you know that? Yeah. So today we're going to make matcha mint pineapple sorbet. And this is a really fun, very simple recipe that you can make with your kids. And it's so refreshing on a hot day, right, Nora?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get started. Well, first, let's talk about mint. Mint is one of our favorite ingredients, and we grow it out on our front porch, right, Nora?
Yep.
Yep. And then did you help me with these leaves?
Yeah.
Did you take them off the stem?
Yeah.
Thanks for doing that. It's so helpful. Okay, so we can dump those in, right? Whoop. Whoop. Okay, and put that over there. Now mint, let me tell you a little bit about mint. Mint is one of our favorite herbs around the house. We use it a lot. You can put it in so many different things, but it's a potent boost of antioxidants when compared to other herbs and spices. So we definitely love it. It's so easy to grow. You go out there and you just take leaves anytime you want, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just love them.
I love them too.
Oh, Tom mint leaves as well. Made out of mint.
Yes, they are. And mint is also a great source of vitamin A, which is great for the health of our eyes, right, Nora?
Yep.
We want healthy eyes. So it also may help improve with digestive issues such as irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it actually kind of helps slow down the digestive tract. So it will help out with that, right?
Yeah, let's
Should we keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. What else do we got? What is that? It's matcha tea. Yes, and it's a powder, right? So go ahead, you can dump that in if you want. Give it a tap on the back.
Tap on the back.
Yep, good job. Thank you. Ooh. You can smell it. And matcha tea is another great boost of antioxidants.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do we have here?
Pineapple.
Pineapple. It's frozen pineapple, right? So it's cold, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super cold for my hand.
Oh no, what color is this?
Yellow.
Yellow. Okay, let's dump that in.
I love that kind of yellow.
Yeah, I do too.
Now,
Okay, and this is about 2.5 cups.
and this is pineapple with a juice in it.
Yeah, so this is like canned pineapple. And there's about a cup here of that. You do want the juice. Let me dump that in. It smells so good. Yum, it's gonna be so delicious. Should we put the lid on?
Yeah, let's put a lid on.
All right, we're gonna turn it
What is
on.
this?
Yeah, that's the matcha tea. Want to show everybody what the container looks like? Yep. Yeah, you want to get the powder form. Are you ready to turn this on for me? Now you be really careful. Just make sure it's all the way down. You can only do this with an adult, right? Okay, you need to flip this up. It's gonna get loud. Wow, that was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's so fun. Oh my goodness, do you want to smell this?
Mmm.
Wow.
Let's put it in here
Look at
now.
what color that turned.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a little fancy bowl here. Can I put it in this one?
But I want this one.
You want that one too? Are you gonna have some?
Like he's tanning it.
I want it in this pretty fancy one. See how it's got the ruffled edges? Now, if this is too thick, which this is almost a little too thin, but you can adjust with the amount of pineapple juice that you put in here. So start off with a smaller amount, and then you can always add more as you need to. All right, now go ahead, and we like to decorate things at my house with 3 little girls. We like pretty things, so we really like little edible flowers. So pansies are edible flowers, so we love those. Oh my goodness, look how cute that is. And it's so fun how it went from yellow to green.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Mm.
Of
course.
I can get my own.
You want to get your own spoon? Okay, I think that's a good idea. I should have grabbed you one. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
That's okay. That's really good.
This spoon.
Oh, you got a fancy spoon.
It's a pokey spoon.
I know. That's a grapefruit spoon. There you go. That's delicious. You love it? Thumbs up? Thumbs up, everybody. So, thank you for joining us. This is Cody Stubbe. Holistic Dish is where you can find me. Holistic is with a W. And Nora's got some stuff on there as well as my other 2 daughters. And please watch our So Many Kids in the Kitchen show as well. That's me.
2, 3 sisters.
Yeah, I got 3 daughters, right? There's 3 sisters in this family, right? And you guys all like to cook, don't you?
Yeah.
You want to have some more?
Yes, I love it.
I love it too. So our So Many Kids in the Kitchen show will be coming up in October. We'll make our announcement soon on the date. And thanks for joining us. And now we're going to go ahead and go to our live Q&A session. So I'm going to pass it on over to Dilip to start that. So bye everybody. Thank you.
All right. So we have, there's another really nice show. I learned so much. I always learn so much from all my fellow cooks in the kitchen. And we invite folks. I know a number of questions have come in, and we've tried to address most or all of them so far. But we'll be on for maybe 15 minutes or so, and happy to take more questions. And I'm sorry some of the cooks couldn't stay, but we have a good number who are here. So I wanted to start with you, Suzanne. So I share your love of yogurt, and I make yogurt all the time. I have a batch that's just finishing in my Instant Pot. And you gave me some tips of different ways of making yogurt that I've never made. So one thing I do with yogurt is I sometimes cook with it. It's a really nice base when you're sauteing maybe some onions and some spices. Some Indian foods kind of have that yogurt creamy base, but I bet you have lots of ideas too. So I wanted you to take a few minutes and tell us, when we think about yogurt, people who aren't vegan, maybe they're eating dairy yogurt, but we know that it's even better if it's vegan. So when you're eating yogurt, besides plain or with granola or with fruit, what else can you do with yogurt?
So you can make some really delicious sauces. Like you said, a lot of Indian sauces do have a yogurt base. But I've also, I don't have an actual recipe for it, but I have just gone ahead and used a yogurt, used the base to make like a cream sauce with pasta, especially if you don't sweeten it. So this recipe today had some maple syrup and lemon juice in it. That's really not necessary. The sugar from the maple syrup does help the probiotics ferment, but it is not necessary, and you can make it completely unsweetened. So that's actually the best way. If you're going to make savory dishes, I probably wouldn't use one of the sweetened yogurts. I would use something without any sweetener in it, but you can add fresh herbs and create a pasta sauce. You can add some nutritional yeast and give it a cheesy flavor. So there's lots of ways to use it in sauces. The other thing that I like to do with it is bake. So I'll use it when I make my banana bread. I'll use it in place of the plant-based milk. I'll use like a thinner version of the yogurt, or even just the thick version of the yogurt, and you get something a bit more moist and pretty dense. So I really like to bake with it as well. But it's just great to eat. And, probiotics are just so good for your digestive tract. And that was kind of one of the questions I just had the other day from a friend who wanted to give up dairy, but was concerned because they really enjoy yogurt every day. So I explained that you can one, make it, or two, even buy the non-dairy yogurt. And many of them have just as many probiotic cultures as dairy yogurt. So it's a great way to enjoy yogurt, and is to make it yourself. And it's so much less expensive, especially if you use the capsules. Some of the vegan starters are a bit costly. I believe the Bella and Bella one that I had, I want to say, I think it was around $10, but that's for 4 packs. So it's only, $2.50 a package, because each box contains 4 packets, and each packet, you use 1 packet for 4 cups or 1 quart of milk.
That's a lot of great tips there. That's actually what caused me to start making my own yogurt, because we prefer, my family prefers organic, and I couldn't find, there was plenty of vegan yogurts in the marketplace. We also felt bad about all the waste, those plastic containers. And I preferred unsweetened yogurt that I could add my own organic fruit to. So that's what motivated me. But Suzanne, lots of great ideas there. Nancy, a couple of questions came up in the chat about sweeteners, and I'm wondering if you could spend a little bit of time talking about sweeteners, the range of them: sugar, white sugar, turbinado sugar, maple syrup, other ones, brown rice syrup, agave. And also a question came up, does all cocoa powder have caffeine? So can you talk a little bit about that as well, please, Nancy?
Sure. Does all cocoa powder have what?
Caffeine.
Yes, well, as far as I know, it has caffeine. Not necessarily a bad thing in small quantities, but it does have caffeine. In terms of the different sugars, they are all simple sugars in various forms. Whether it's brown rice sugar, agave, maple syrup, just plain white sugar, castor sugar, they are all simple sugars. And so they are absorbed very readily and easily in the bloodstream. So in some ways they are not, in many ways, none of them are healthy. But if one goes for things like maple syrup, which come actually from sap, boiled down sap from the maple tree, it does have the nutrients from the tree. For example, manganese, which is very, very high in manganese, which helps calcium to go into the body. So some of the plant derived, I suppose they're all plant derived, but something like maple syrup does have some nutrients in it. Now, all of that having been said, they are all simple sugars with slight differences, but if it's taken in very small quantities, as it is in this recipe, and mixed in with the high fiber chickpeas and the almond butter, which has some fat in it, then all of that slows down how quickly those simple sugars are absorbed into the bloodstream. So, for example, if this is a snack for kids, first of all, kids need some fat in the diet. You cannot go on a low-fat, whole-food, plant-based diet. You cannot have fat and calories in it. So the Snickerdoodle hummus, in many ways, is perfect for kids. It's got everything. It's got fiber, it's got fat, and it's got some simple sugars for immediate. But all of the fiber and fat in it does slow down the absorption of those simple sugars, syrup, and tempers it a little. So it's partly the sugar, but it's also what one is eating it with. So I hope that makes sense. I can never claim that simple sugars are healthy, but in some recipes, look at palatable, then it can benefit. And certainly having this Snickerdoodle hummus with all the antioxidants in it, everything else, protein and fiber, is a really healthy food. And it's much better than something which has no fiber and is just pure sugar. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, that's good, because that comes up a lot. A lot of people wonder about things like that. I love natural sweeteners. So peaches, Mark, you had a great presentation about peaches, and I'm jealous. I love peaches, and I don't get that many different varieties. I get typically two or three varieties. I know there's a lot. Can you talk more about stone fruit in general? What is stone fruit? And can you talk about, also you were using dates. Do you have to be careful about when you're blending dates to make sure there's not a pit?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great questions. So stone fruits are basically have that big seed in them, right? And it's pretty identifiable. So, um, you know, living where we live here in the upper Midwest or lower, um, I guess the middle upper Midwest, if that makes any sense. We have these extremes of temperature. So, it's 100 plus degrees today. And then when we're doing our show in November, for example, I mean, it could be 20 degrees above zero. So, you know, um, so our growing season is relatively short versus like with Carolyn's in Montgomery, Alabama, much longer growing season. But the thing about the particular middle upper Midwest, so Southwest Michigan, for example, the soil is just phenomenal. And one of the reasons we get so many great varieties of peaches and apples and blueberries and strawberries and raspberries in a short growing season is a rich sandy soil. So that's one of the reasons we have more some access versus where you're at, Philip, in Raleigh, Durham. But there's trade-offs everywhere you live. In terms of the dates, yeah, you have to be careful. I kind of showed how to pit the dates. The medjool dates, the organic medjool dates are what I use. I'm really leaning more towards using dates these days for sweeteners. I really appreciate Nancy's comments with respect to the simple sugars and even agave syrup that they'll use is still a simple sugar, but really appreciated Nancy your description of about the combining those simple sugars with high fiber foods and fats, healthy fats like the almonds, because it really helps potentiate and temper the effects of those simple sugars upon our body. So things to think about as we move more and more into this vegan world. And I'm still on a journey. Been on this journey now 3.5 years. So yeah. So be careful when you're using dates. You got to pit them. But if you've got a sweet tooth and you really want to add some additional sugar, go ahead and snack on some dates. Or I think my recipe calls for like 5 for 10 peaches. If you want to double that, double that, and you're gonna get a little bit sweeter sorbet.
We're really lucky. We have each other, and you can see the amount of knowledge, wisdom, information here. Nancy, for example, is not our only one, but she's one of a number of Food for Life instructors who's an MD, who's a doctor. And it's really unfortunate that in medical schools, generally doctors don't learn that much about nutrition. And nutrition is really, I think, key to health. And we're just really fortunate to have Nancy and all her medical insights with the show and as a Food for Life instructor. One thing that's interesting is, as a community of Food for Life instructors, we have each other. We also have Physicians Committee, and in a few minutes we'll tell you more about Physicians Committee. So Susan Levin, who's our nutrition education director, I asked her recently about dates, and I said, should we rate limit? Should we limit how many dates we eat? Because they are so sweet, and there's many benefits of dates, and you don't get the disadvantages of sugar. So Susan said there's no reason to limit the number of dates you eat. So for me, the only limit of dates is price. If I lived where Janin lives, for example, where they grow, then that'd be wonderful. I just discovered a variety of date. I can't remember what it's called. One of you may know. And it's just so expensive, and I can only find it on Amazon. It tastes like caramel. It just melts in your mouth. It's so good. So dates are...
Bari date?
What's it called?
Bari, I think it's B-A-H-R-I.
B-A-H-R-I,
Mm-hmm.
which, and I'm glad you shared that, Karen, because I was going to come to you next. One thing I just love about Karen is you have such a very deep knowledge of food, and if you haven't seen it, we have published a video that Karen made. It's our premiere video where we're going deep on one topic, and she did a film on melons. And Karen, I have to tell you, we were shopping, my daughter and I, a few days ago, and yesterday, in fact, and we were getting a watermelon, and anew, my daughter said, you saw her in the show, wait, Daddy, let me get the one the way Miss Karen described it. And I was picking one. She said, no, Daddy, Miss Karen wouldn't pick this one. She'd pick this one. And she was looking for something that was a little bit more round. So you've made a big impact in our family, and I thank you, Karen. And I want to turn to you, Karen, with your tremendous food knowledge. Is tell us more about white peaches. So one thing I like to tell my students, and a couple of us have mentioned that, is that the colors we see, the natural colors we see in fruits and vegetables, are good. They're phytochemicals, and generally speaking, if you have a choice of purple cauliflower versus white cauliflower, they're both good. But if price is the same, which it never is, then pick the purple. It has more phytochemicals, but it's marginal. I mean, if you're eating cauliflower, that's awesome. Can you tell us more about white peaches and some of the phytochemicals? Do white peaches lack some of the phytochemicals that yellow peaches do? And can you talk about maybe additional peach varieties that Mark hasn't?
Well, so little that it would be more visible, I think, in the yellow, the darker peaches, but the white ones still have it. There's a lot of nutrients in the skin. And they the white peaches would be too. I have some kind of echo. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. The white peaches were really soft and hard to bring to market. They would just get too mushy and bruised. And so they used to have more acid when they bred them so that they could take them to market, and they ended up with less acid. And it's just, I guess, your preference. I think they're all really good. The donut shape, I don't know if you've seen the donut shape peaches. Those are really good. You don't need to put them in a recipe or anything. They're just a great snack, real sweet snack. One thing I'll say about peaches, there's the clean stone or free stone, and that's just like how easy the flesh comes away from the seed, the pit. The free stone peaches come off of the seed real easy. And
Karen, thanks for that. It was a little hard to hear. There was some feedback, but I got some gems of wisdom there, and I'm not sure why it was a little bit difficult to hear. I think one thing Karen is saying too is we're making fine divisions. When you go shopping, let other factors lead you, pocketbook and what something looks like. And this is just a fine distinction. So if you have a luscious peach, especially if it's organic, and another one that's a different color, it's only somebody like maybe Karen or myself who would think, which one has more phytochemicals? They're both awesome. Eat from the power plate, fruits, grains, whole grains, legumes, and vegetables. Eat from this and eat a wide variety. And we're just making some fine distinctions. Carolyn, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about oats. So there's different kinds of oats. There's steel cut oats, there's rolled oats, and then there's gluten-free oats. And this is something I learned just a few years ago. I thought all oats were gluten-free, and there's a subtle reason they're not. So can you talk more about oats and the health benefits of oats? Oats are a wonderful food to eat.
Sure. So oats, when they're grown without other grains in fields near them, oats should be very much gluten-free. But because oats are typically grown where there's wheat and other kinds of things that have gluten in them nearby, they're not really just grown usually all by themselves. They have other grains nearby. Some cross-contamination can occur. And so people who are very sensitive to gluten, who might have a gluten intolerance or even celiac disease, which is less than 1% of the population, but it's not a huge number of people who have that. But some people are very sensitive to gluten, and so should look specifically for certified gluten-free oats that have not been grown near other grains to avoid the cross-contamination. But there are, like you said, many different kinds of oats. There's the whole rolled oats are the kind that I use today in the recipe. And that's basically just taking the whole oat groat and then they just roll it like it says. They're smashed, which makes them cook faster. Steel cut oats are when they take the whole oat groat and cut it like the name says, steel cut. They use steel cutting blades and cut it. Instant oats are basically rolled oats that have been ground up a lot more to make them cook a lot faster. So I would think that as far as nutritional benefit goes, whole oat groats are going to be the most nutritionally dense and have the most fiber. They're the most intact whole grain. And then that would go down to steel cut oats, whole rolled oats. Instant oats would probably be, the least nutritionally dense. So I used the whole rolled oats because they soak up the almond milk faster and get nice and soft overnight. But one of our favorite things to eat actually most of the time is whole oat groats. And I just soak them overnight, and in the morning they've soaked up a lot of the water, and then just cook them until they become a little softer. So it may take 5 or 10 minutes instead of 40 minutes in the morning by just soaking them overnight. But oats are an incredible source of fiber. And like Nancy said too, we know that diets high in fiber, especially soluble fibers, oats are very high in soluble fiber, can decrease cardiovascular disease, and reverse or decrease blood pressure issues, reduce your risk of colon cancer because of all that fiber. So, there's no downside to oats and to getting more fiber in our diets for sure.
Oh, I totally agree about that. I'm a nutrition education director for a local school, and in some classrooms I've introduced Instant Pots, and I've created a program where it's easy for teachers to provide whole food plant-based dishes for their students. And sometimes you think of oatmeal as not being a particularly exciting food, but I've been doing this in the schools for some years now, and my students love it. It's so easy to make oats. And one thing I find is a lot of people, their palate is dull because they're used to sweetness, so much sweetness. Right. One example is my daughter doesn't eat candy, almost not at all. So at Halloween, first of all, a lot of the candy isn't vegan, and she's a very strict vegan. We all are. But some of the candy is, and it's junk food. And what we usually do is we go trick-or-treating, and she'll pick out 2 or 3 or half a dozen candies, and that lasts for a long time. The rest we donate. Our farmer's market will actually take it. And so she's not used to it. When those very rare times she eats candy, she usually tells me this is really sweet, and she doesn't really enjoy it. And so the trick I find with oatmeal is when you cook oatmeal, dice an apple and you put that in. And my kids at the schools that I teach at love it. That's all they need. We don't even add maple syrup. We have oats and apple and some cinnamon. And cinnamon helps with the glycemic index as well. It tastes sweet, but it actually drops the glycemic index. And so I would add to what Carolyn said that Brenda Davis, my friend Brenda Davis, RD, she and I've talked about oats, and there are different varieties about of which oat is more healthy. But oats are just so healthy that if you really like steel cut versus rolled or whatever, go with it. It's still going to give you a lot of nutrition. The one caveat is when you go to the store and you buy those packets of oats, they're loaded with sugar. It's like you don't need that. And so what I do when I travel is I do take some oats, and if I'm in a hotel room and I want to have breakfast before starting my day in the room, then I get some boiling water. That's the simplest way to do it. I just get a bowl or a cup and I pour some boiling water, let it sit for a minute or two, and that's good enough. It doesn't taste as good as if you cook it more or if you use some soy milk or something, but it's still quite nice. There was a question that
I did classes all. Oh, go ahead.
Go on, Carolyn.
Oh, I was going to say, I taught cooking classes to children all summer long. I had 50 kids every Tuesday, and those kids were hilarious because they didn't want to try oats. And we did an oatmeal bar one day where I had a huge crock pot just filled with oats that were cooked with just water. And then all the different tables had different toppings they could put on. And by the end of the day, they were all, or the end of the cooking time together, they were all saying, oatmeal is good. And I got replies from several of the moms who texted me afterward and said, my child is now asking me to make oatmeal for breakfast. So I don't know what you did. And I said, well, I mean, it's not one of the kids told me all they ever had was that kind out of the packet with all the sugar. And he said he didn't like it very much. But when I gave them all the fresh fruits and the nuts and a little maple syrup and some cinnamon and all these things they could put on it, they loved it. And they thought it was they were gone. I had a huge crock pot full, and those kids had seconds and thirds. It was great. So.
I bet it also had something to do with how much fun they had actually making something for themselves versus just dumping a packet with some water.
I heard, Carolyn, how
exactly.
you got some very nice hugs from your classes.
Oh, yes. Which is probably why I got sick over the 4th of July weekend. Those little petri dish children were hugging me at the end of every class. But yeah, it wasn't COVID. I tested negative for COVID. It wasn't that, but it was something that I had.
We got an interesting note from Kathy Sabo, and she said, quote, gluten today seems to play a large role in infertility. I hadn't heard that. And before we address to see if any of us can address it, I shared a link here that I know PCRM, anything PCRM does is evidence-based, and without having seen this show, I know it's going to be an excellent show. And anything that we put out, as well as Michael Greger, would be well worth seeing. I'm unaware of any such negative implications of gluten. Gluten is considered a good food. It's one of the whole grains, unless you have celiac disease or you're otherwise insensitive to gluten. And there's a book that came out, Wheat Belly or something, which I think misrepresented a lot of things. And suddenly you see people wearing badges of honor. Hey, I'm now a vegan and I'm gluten-free, which is great. Well, and it is great if you're gluten-free. If you're gluten sensitive, that is a good thing, but the vast majority of us, gluten is a good food. And so does anybody here have any knowledge to answer Kathy's comment that it seems to play a role in infertility? I've not heard that at all. Does anybody else know anything about that?
There is a bit of research with inflammation and gluten, that gluten can be considered an inflammatory food for people, but I'm not aware of a direct, like any sort of scientific research that's been done. Not to say that it's not out there, but I just wouldn't be able to comment on that without knowing for sure and reading, actual research studies. But there are many people who are sensitive to gluten, and they really don't realize it until they remove gluten from their diet, and maybe suddenly they don't have joint pain, or they're just overall feeling better and never really knew why, or didn't even notice that they weren't feeling well. So there are plenty of non-celiac gluten sensitivities, and sometimes people just need to sort of figure that out for themselves. And that's really with any food. It's really important to pay attention to what you eat and how you feel, like a food-mood relationship, and not just mood, but other symptoms that you may have, like I said, joint pain or eczema or other things that tend to be caused by inflammation. So again, that's, it's always important to follow up with your own doctor on that. But I like the link that you had posted, Dilip, and referring people to either Dr. Greger or PCRM, where there are a lot of research studies and a lot of great videos and information that can talk more about that.
Thanks, Suzanne, for that. And we'll keep going with Q&A for a few more minutes. But Suzanne, I want to remind you, you do have a commitment at 12:30. So
yep, thank you so much.
Thanks for being in Q&A, and we'll probably go for 5-10 minutes. But thanks, Suzanne, for being with us.
Thank you.
And before you leave, Suzanne, I want to remind our audience that every one of us presented a lot. If you have a question just for Suzanne, you can reach any of us by sending an email to our first name at somanycooks.com. So Suzanne, if you want to reach her, it would be Suzanne@somanycooks.com. Thanks, Suzanne.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and thank you so much for tuning in.
So I wanted to piggyback on something Suzanne just said, and there's a thing called an elimination diet. So we may have this pot of food, from the power plate, but one particular food, maybe mango, maybe oats, maybe red beans, or maybe a carrot, is deleterious to your particular health. And here's my theory. This isn't evidence-based. I think Mother Nature has wired us so that, we think kale is great for us, and all the evidence does show it's great for us. But what if next year there's a study that comes out that says certain kinds of people, kale is actually bad for you, and then those people who haven't been eating kale, say there's this big catastrophe, they'll survive, and the rest of us who are enjoying kale won't. That's my silly theory. That's why we have diverse tongues and diverse palates. And so there's a thing called an elimination diet. And if you're not feeling well, I'll tell you a personal story. My wife was having problems, and she said, Dilip is a good cook. I do almost all the cooking in my house. I teach on Sunday night, so she either cooks or she gets takeaway. She says, Dilip's a good cook, and his food is very nutritious. And yet, this is about 6-7 years ago, I've not been feeling so well recently. And so she started an elimination diet. And I think she tried gluten, eliminating that. Didn't make any impact. She said, let me try avoiding, maybe it was tempeh. I can't remember what it was. She tried many things and no change. And she traced it to the water. The drinking water bothers her. It doesn't bother me. I think we get pretty good water. And so when we go grocery shopping, we should probably get a filtration system, but we actually lug big bottles and we get filtered water. And that did the trick for her. As soon as we switched overnight, that solved her problem. She no longer had those issues. And so an elimination diet can help. And Kathy, you had commented that in your daughter's case that it turned out gluten helped, and that could be. But I haven't seen lots of evidence that's the case for large populations. It could very well have been true and is true for your daughter, and she's well served probably from avoiding that. But I don't want to overstate the case about gluten. Gluten generally is a very, very healthful food. So unless somebody else wants to say something, I want to actually move on to another topic. Did anybody else want to jump on that? Oh, yeah, why don't we let's talk about the book in a second, but I want to still talk about culinary a little bit more. In my segment, and I really enjoyed rushing off to the Sanker Center, which is it's named after a Nobel Prize winner who was a professor at University of North Carolina, and I love the space. I'm actually thinking of doing more of my shows, or maybe all of my shows from the center. I really loved it. I'm doing classes, and I'm showing my film. I want to put a plug for my film, Code Blue, codebluedoc.com. Film about how to use lifestyle medicine to keep us healthy, or if you stray into ill health, coming back to better health. But back to culinary for a second. One thing I mentioned in my segment was about ginger, and I forgot to say that ginger is really important for digestive health. If you are driving someplace and you're feeling nauseous, like my daughter recently was not feeling so well, we didn't have ginger, but that's a good thing. Take some ginger, chew on ginger root. Include it in your food, and it's great for helping with digestion. It's great. Some of us want to eat more beans, but the beans bother us. The ginger will help. One more culinary topic, and then I'd like maybe Mark and Carolyn and Karen, I think you're all in the book, to talk about this new book. Mm-hmm. But one more culinary topic, and that is, unfortunately, Susanna couldn't stick around, but I had a question for her, but I'm really ignorant about vinegar, so anybody else can answer this. I didn't grow up with vinegar. It's not part of Indian cuisine. My parents were immigrants from India, and so I'd eat dill pickles once in a while, but that was about it. And so I don't have a palate for vinegar. So when recipes call for vinegar, I either omit it or put very little. And I know that acid in vinegar is very helpful for certain foods like beans for uptake of certain nutrients. But I wanted to ask, in terms of the refrigerator pickled garden vegetables that Susanna had, what are some, can you still pickle fruits and vegetables? I don't know about fruits, but with minimal vinegar or with other preservatives besides vinegar? The taste of vinegar is really strong for me. Does anybody have any comments on vinegar and vinegar alternatives?
I don't know anything about a vinegar alternative, but yeah, I love vinegar. So I don't know what a vinegar alternative would be, because I actually sitting here drinking ice water with a splash of vinegar in it. we use a lot of vinegar in our house. So
yeah, that sounds very unappealing to me.
Well, it's so good.
Yeah, Philip, I'm wondering if as an alternative. So we just were out of town actually in Southwest Michigan, and there was a olive oil and balsamic vinegar store. Of course, we avoided the half that was olive oil, and there were probably about 40 different types of balsamic vinegars, all the way from very tart to very sweet ones, so perhaps trying an aged balsamic vinegar. I mean, there was a 12-year-old aged balsamic vinegar that had the viscosity of like a maple syrup, and it did not taste anything like a vinegar. So maybe as a treat, we want to try some type of aged balsamic vinegar, going to one of those specialty stores. I mean, it's expensive. I mean, a little bottle like this was about $15, and I'm talking about 2 or 3 ounces. But as a little treat, it might be something nice to think about.
Exactly. That's what we have a store just like that. Yeah, we have a store just like that here in Montgomery called Vintage Olive. And this is a lemongrass mint vinegar. And this one is vanilla. And this one is blueberry. And actually, I think in one of Chef AJ's books, she has a recipe for, how when you go to Snow Cone and it's just shaved ice, and they drizzle that sugar all over the top, just straight up sugar water. Well, instead, do shaved ice and drizzle maybe vanilla or blueberry balsamic vinegar over it, and it's fabulous. So yeah, I love this stuff. I mean, we have, if you can see behind me on the counter, there's probably 15 bottles of different kinds of balsamic vinegars. We avoid the oil section of the store too, but I go straight to the vinegar, and we buy huge bottles of it. I mean, we use so much balsamic vinegar. It's wonderful.
I think people think of the white or the very astringent tasting ones, which, you know, is kind of our, you know, Americanized versions, if you will, of vinegars and balsamic vinegars.
Right. Now these are incredible. The blueberry is like amazing. And it's not like an overpowering vinegar flavor. It's delicious. So.
We so bringing the culinary portion of the program kind of to a tentative end, I hope that our audience has enjoyed. We wanted to put together a program showing you that you can cook in the heat and not have to heat up your kitchens. And I hope that some of the recipes ring true and that you'll try them. Please share with us. You can post your results. Let's turn, before we wrap up the program, to some non-culinary issues, but by all means, please keep sending any questions your way. The first thing I wanted to mention is I want to invite you to our upcoming shows. So just a few weeks from now, and I regret it, it's on September 11th and the 20th anniversary of September 11th. So we do honor and feel, you know, I felt really bad for a few years doing anything on September 11th, but the way I look at it is if you avoid that day, that's a win for the terrorists. So September 11th does have some sad memories, but we'll try to also add some good thoughts to September 11th. And our September 11th this year, we're doing so many FFL class recipes. We're all Food for Life instructors, and we want to show off all the different classes. We have a cancer class. You don't have to have cancer, but if you know somebody, how can you cook for them to help manage the cancer? Diabetes. Let's not get diabetic, but if we are diabetic, what can we do? We have classes for low income. All of us, I was low income when I was in college, so many of us, if not all of us, face low income periods of our life, and some people are truly poor. We have classes designed for an Indian audience, classes for a Chinese audience. We have a wide variety of classes. So we're going to try to show off some of our classes. And then in October, on October 9th, we're doing so many autumn harvest foods. And I think the very next Saturday, the kids in the kitchen, so Cody's children, my children, and we have another instructor, Ella, her two kids, will be doing an autumn food program as well. They're on every other month, ages 5 through 12. And then last year before Thanksgiving, we did so many Thanksgiving dishes. So this year we're doing so many more Thanksgiving dishes. And we're in discussion about our December one. It's probably going to be a holiday food. It'll probably be so many more holiday dishes or something like that. And then, of course, the kids I mentioned are going to be in October. So that's some things coming up. Let's make a few more announcements. Let's talk about this wonderful book. And I'm going to share the link here. So those of you who are in the book, why don't you chime in?
Yeah, it's a great book. Food is Climate. I forgot to talk about it during my segment. I was going to. It's sitting right here by me on the counter, and then I forgot to talk about it. I even have on a Food is Climate t-shirt that I'm wearing that one of my fitness students made for me. But Food is Climate by Glenn Mercer, best-selling author. He's done several books with Chef AJ, with Howard Lyman, The Mad Cowboy, that book. There's a whole section at the back of the book on Food for Life instructors. And several of us, Food for Life instructor section, several of us have recipes in the book, including Mark and Karen, Tiffany, who wasn't with us today, Cody, who actually her little girls have recipes in here too. So we have a really nice section of Food for Life instructors representing in the back of the book. So yeah, Mark, what do you want to say about the book?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, great. You know, that's 90 pages of the book are recipes. So, but the first 60 pages about the impact of our food choices on the climate. And you know, I have always been interested in climate change and understand the science, follow the science. And I thought, like a lot of people, that well, how could I impact how can I impact climate the best? And I thought, well, solar panels, and I drive an electric car and have a hybrid car, and I recycle. Where in fact, if we move off of agriculture, off of animal-based products, we can actually substantially impact climate change by what we put on our plate every evening. I mean,
Right.
Dr. Ceviche Rao, who is actually one of the researchers on the project of Al Gore's project, An Inconvenient Truth, has research included, and Glenn talks about Dr. Rao's research in this book and how he tried to get Al Gore to really look at veganism and look at the choice of food and its impact on climate, and was marginally acknowledged through the work of An Inconvenient Truth. So Dr. Rao really kind of stepped his game up, and he's got climatehealers.org is his organization. And Dr. Rao's research really shows that up to 87% of CO2 in the atmosphere can be reduced by eliminating animal agriculture. I mean, and you think 87%, are you kidding me? Well, some of the research he talks about is the way methane, as it is released into the environment, converts into CO2. I mean, just unbelievable stuff that me, as a layperson who knows enough about science to be dangerous, as I read this research, it really makes a lot of sense. So, pick the book up. I mean, it's on Kindle it's $4.95. A hard copy like this is $10 and some change with shipping from Amazon. You'll get it in a couple of days, and the 60-page read is something you could read easily in an afternoon, and then you get I don't know how many recipes, but there's 9 Food for Life instructors, and there's Chef AJ, and I know Karen and Carolyn and Tiffany, we're all going to be on Chef AJ's show in November, doing some of our cooking and our recipes and so forth. So check out Food is Climate. Kind of blew my mind. Took me a couple of reads, quite frankly, because it's so dense in research in that 60 pages.
This is a topic close to my heart, too. I used to work with Glenn years ago when Howard was on the lecture circuit. Howard's a great guy. Howard's one of the best speakers on veganism. He used to be a cattle rancher, and he almost died. And if you know the show The Simpsons, the doctor said he had a 1 in a million chance of surviving, and he survived. And he found out it was his meat diet. And so he was giving a talk in Los Angeles, and the person, Matt Groening, I think is his name, the guy who created The Simpsons, walked out of his talk, and he yelled at Howard. He said, "This is rubbish," or something like that. He couldn't believe it. So he went to a library and researched what Howard was talking about, and it was all true. And he apologized. And because of that, he created Lisa Simpson as a vegan because of Howard Lyman. And so years and years ago, I had some relationships with Glenn. And while Howard was on his book tour, I hosted Howard a number of times in my house. He stayed with me, which was wonderful. So we've become pretty good friends. But this topic is really near and dear to me, that by far the biggest impact we make on the environment is with our food choices. There's so many great sources. I'm part of the International Vegetarian Union. We created a whole site just about environment and food. So the biggest impact by far we make is diet. And if you eat low on the food chain, so we homeschool, and last year in 6th grade, my daughter, we were looking at energy conversions. And every time you convert energy, ideally, if we were green and we put our hands out and converted the energy from the sun, we'd have our nutrition, but we're not. And so we have to eat plants. But we lose something. 90% of the energy that the sun gives to the plants is lost to growth, to decay, to parts that we can't eat, and so forth. But at least we get 10%. When we eat an animal, we lose 90% yet again at every stage. So carnivores at the top of the food pyramid are getting a tiny, tiny bit of the energy from the sun. So by eating plants, by eating low on the food chain, it's by far the best thing you can do. And the UN came up with a report, what was it, 15 or 20 years ago, that said that by far the biggest impact we can make. And I think it's important for people to know that. I know that, especially in our divided political times, yay, Kathy, grow more trees.
Grow more trees, yes.
In our divided political times, people don't get a vaccine, do this, do that. People say, no, thanks. We are like our freedom, right? So there's a lot of division about that kind of thing. But I wish that we got the word out and didn't tell people you've got to be a vegan, but here's the information. If you go plant-based, you're less likely to get sick. If you're sick, you might reverse things. You're doing by far the best thing for the environment. It's the best thing for the animals. We just got the word out there and let people make their own decisions. That would be a good thing, but we just don't get the information out there. Karen, I probably interrupted you.
Exactly.
You wanted to probably, you're in the book too. Did you want to share about the book as well?
I'll try this again. Sorry, I'm just having unstable internet. Yeah, the book is really good. It's really entertaining. It's a quick read and very interesting. And what I really like about it is it goes into how we can, the average person can do something about not only lowering emissions, but actually driving down the carbon the carbon that's already emitted. So yeah, I just really like the book.
And so for all these reasons, nutrition, environment, all sorts of reasons, check it out. There's so much good evidence out there, and I encourage you to look for books, look for articles. You'll find articles and literature promoting meat and dairy, but there's not a lot of them. And if you look at the references, they're not extensive. If you look at the references for whole food plant-based eating, you're going to find thousands and thousands and thousands of references. And a great source we've talked about is Michael Greger, Getting Back to Health. Nutritionfacts.org is very, very strictly evidence-based, and it's a wonderful storehouse of information. So in today's world, when we don't know if 1 + 1 = 2 or 3 or 0, it's good to do your own research and look at the evidence supporting that research. And Eileen just shared a comment, which gives me some hope that she hated vinegar, but she's been trying some California balsamic vinegars. You know, I do like, there's one vinegar I like, and it's called Umi plum vinegar. And I was brought up, so salads are great, but in America, a lot of people douse their salads with, when I was growing up, with all these creamy dressings, and we didn't. My mom, when she cooked, because she was the cook in the house, she'd put just a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of salt, a little bit of black pepper, and that's it. I like that because it brings out the flavors of your food. I love lime, fresh lime or fresh lemon, fresh Meyer lemon if you can get it. If you can get organic Meyer lemon, it's the best. A little bit of that, even a little tangerine juice, and just a bit of salt, a little bit of black pepper, if you're okay eating salt. So that could be a different issue. And so sometimes when I make a dressing, I'll put just a little bit of Umi plum vinegar. Umi plum vinegar is a bit more expensive, but it lasts in my house for months and months and months. And so that adds a nice flavor component. Let's one of us talk a little bit about Food for Life, and let's one of us talk about So Many Cooks in the Kitchen for those who are new. So Nancy, do you want to talk a little bit about what is Food for Life?
Well, Food for Life is it's a program run by Physicians Committee, and it is basically that. It's food and recipes and health eating programs for maximum health. And it's all based on plant-based whole food, low added oil. So it doesn't mean it's no fat, it's just no added oil. And so Food for Life has several programs, and it's these programs run from about 5 up to 8 weeks. And we as Food for Life instructors deliver these programs. And it's one session, it can be run over a weekend, but generally it's one session a week. And we would go through some excellent videos produced by Physicians Committee. And then we cook a few recipes and then share the food that we cook so that people can see how good this food is. And the programs run around several topics. There's the Kicks, which is basically the learner's guide to healthy plant-based eating. There's the diabetes course for people who would like to get better control of their diabetes, both type 1 and type 2. There's the Cancer Project, breast cancer. There was the COVID course. There's various courses, and they're hugely informative. And and it's all based around whole food, plant-based, minimally processed, which goes with the whole food, and no added oil. And so with that, you get some very good techniques on how to cook without oil. And the food is delicious. And I have to say, the videos at the beginning of each class are top quality, covering the background nutritional information on how food interacts with whatever disease is being looked at, whether it's cancer or diabetes.
It's amazing how it seems like this one solution, whole food plant-based eating with limited fats, seems to, the evidence bears out, seems to do the trick for keeping us healthy, and when we're not healthy, helping to manage it. And we have many research articles that show sometimes we get better results simply with dietary interventions like this and other lifestyle changes like exercise and sleep habits and things like that. We have better results than through medication in some cases. So PCRM is an amazing organization. I feel so privileged to be part of it and to be able to offer the classes. They're outstanding. And our classes are all over the world. We have in-person classes and we have virtual classes as well. Before we go to Mark to talk about So Many Cooks in the Kitchen, Karen sent a message, and I'll speak on your behalf, Karen, because of your audio, unless you want to try it. So Karen said, I was just thinking about the yogurt, and I make soy yogurt every week, like I do, and just quickly put together a salad and top it with a little yogurt, vegan yogurt, of course, and herbs and spices, and it is quick and yummy. And that sounds good. I've never done that. I sometimes put yogurt in a pan, and I'll put some spices, and I'll heat it up, and then I'll put vegetables and get kind of a creamy vegetable base too, which is nice. Mark, can you tell us about our gig, So Many Cooks in the Kitchen?
Yep. So we're a group of Food for Life instructors. Some of us have been at this for a number of years, and some of us, like myself, have been at this for just about a year and a half now as a Food for Life instructor. And we meet and we have these monthly shows. They're on Facebook and YouTube, and I think there's one other place. Twitter, thank you. Yeah. I don't tweet, and I do YouTube though. We have these monthly shows, and I think we all do this for various reasons. Some of us to get the word out, some of us to promote, some of us to learn, some of us to do all of that. I mean, I do all. I'm on So Many Cooks to really learn from everybody, learn from questions, to also talk about my services at letseatgreat.com, and also just to hopefully to inspire people to become whole food plant-based and the benefit and the value of whole food plant-based. All of our shows on the monthly basis you get recipes, and you get the same kind of format of Q&A at the end, and all the videos are posted. So if you're watching this today, great. If you want to tell other people about the shows, they could log on to So Many Cooks in the Kitchen and Facebook and YouTube and see our past shows as well. So it's a great experience, and I think it's just a great way, kind of in depth, to share. And then our videos are also shared on which network, Philip?
Yeah, Plant-Based Network.
Plant-Based Network.
Thank you. Yeah, Plant-Based Network. So I got to catch our shows on Plant-Based Network. I got to get on the Roku, right? It's kind of one way you can do that.
You can watch Plant-Based Network on the web, on Roku, Apple TV, on many, many streaming platforms.
Okay, probably
Amazon
Roku and
Fire.
Apple TV are too big. Amazon Fire
Amazon
too?
Fire. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
These
You
are
just
fun
have to look
shows
for Plant-Based Network.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, these are fun shows to do. I feel such an affinity to my fellow Food for Life instructors, and I feel even stronger affinity to all of you. It's very interesting. Some of us have never met each other. I've never met you. I've met Carolyn many times, but I've never met Nancy or Karen or Mark or I think almost anybody else on the show. Cody and I joke, we feel like we're like best friends, and we've never once met. And we're going to try to change that. We're going to try to meet. I'm very, very have a strong affinity to her wonderful children, and they have an affinity, I think, to my daughter too. So it's been a great community, and we hope we've engendered a bit of an online community. We thank all of you. I know some of you watch every single show, and some of you watch when you can. All the shows are always available. You can watch you can watch past ones, and if you wait for them to be edited on Plant-Based Network, then we break them into chunks as well. So I will leave it open for a second to see if there's any final questions from our internet audience. Mark, go ahead.
Yes,
You want to say the final word about
Buy the book. By the way,
book.
the initial proceeds are going to support to buy copies so that they can be handed out at the COP26
in Glasgow. In September.
In September,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
Exactly.
all the delegates from NATO, they're hoping to pass these books out, because that's where global climate change decisions are made. So if we can get these books into people's hands, and you can be part of the solution by buying a copy and donate, and some of the proceeds will be donated to get these books in the COP26 participants' hands.
And I have to say, Sailesh Rao is amazing. I've met him and I've been on, he does all these podcasts. He was a senior engineer with Intel, and he was really one of the ones responsible for deploying the internet. And he saw, when his grandchild was born, he saw how precious the world was and how we're, because of diet, how a lot of the world was suffering. And he said, nothing I'm doing here at his company was as important as promoting plant-based eating to save the world from an environmental point of view. So his charts, climatehealers.org, I think it is, climatehealers.org, are amazing. They're the best environmental research out there, and you can see his engineering mind behind it. And he's happily shares it. So if you in your own communities are promoting plant-based eating, maybe you're a registered nurse and you're doing classes or sharing plant-based eating, and here's an extra thing about environment. Grab his charts. They're all freely shareable, and he's done a lot of work to create some beautiful work. I attended, it was 2 years ago, I think. Every month he had a workshop. He did one in the morning and one in the evening to accommodate different times. He's had summits. One was in Israel, one was in Arizona, where he brings people together because he really believes we've got to do something now to save the world 25 years from now. We've got to do something. And this is by far, we could maybe drive less, take less showers. Those make this impact. Eating plant-based makes this impact, positive impact. And so Sailesh Rao is outstanding in his website. He's also made a film. If you're interested in religion and ethics, he's made a film. Does anybody remember the title? It came out also about 2 years ago, and it's on Climate Healers.
I've seen it.
I
can't remember.
Finally, if you're interested in religion, my friend Rin Berry wrote a book called Food for the Gods, which I highly recommend. And he talks about Islam and Judaism and Roman Catholicism and Protestantism and Hinduism. And he talks about how he feels that these religions began with a strong advocacy for plant-based eating. And then he talks about a current congregation who strongly promotes that. Great book. If you're really interested in religion, I highly recommend Food for the Gods. So with that,
so I want to point out that can I say one
thoughts, Carolyn? Go on, Carolyn.
Yes. So Monday night, my husband and I do a live, the last Monday of every month, something called Meatless Monday Montgomery. And even though it says Meatless Monday, we are meatless all the time, but it's called Meatless Monday because we met at Whole Foods on the last Monday of every month. And so it was just called Meatless Monday, but it's, we're 24/7 meatless. But we will be interviewing Glenn Moser, the author of the book, live on Monday evening at 6 o'clock Central Time on Meatless Monday Montgomery Facebook page. So, and I think it'll also stream as well on our YouTube channel, which is called Strickland's and Friends. So it'll be 2 different places, and you can watch our interview with Glenn. We'll ask him lots of good questions. So.
Well, thank you, everybody, for watching our show. The recipes are available. They'll always be available. And Brenda Davis, RD, one of my favorite nutritionists, actually my favorite nutritionist, she always contributes an appendix. So she's written a very nice appendix. And she's talked about something we didn't talk about different theories about keeping cool. And there is some controversy, and she shared that as well. So nutrition is an evolving science, and we like to share what we know. And so check out whatever Brenda has to write or say is always outstanding, and is couched in such a gentle way. Brenda is, I could go on for an hour telling you singing praises of Brenda, her work with diabetes, for example, in the Marshall Islands. She's done so much good. Get any book by Brenda Davis, and I think you'll be enriched by that. So with that, we thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the 11th of September, where we have a nice program. We haven't figured it out yet, but we're designing it, and I'm sure it's going to be a good one. So look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. So many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.